Thank you, Deputy Chancellor Amy Maestera and Chancellor Louis D. Farabee. We are ready to begin the public budget hearing.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome. Thank you for joining us this evening for the fiscal year 2024 public budget hearing for the school year 2023-24. My name is Amy Maestera, and I'm the Deputy Chancellor of Innovation and Systems Improvement here at DCPS. I am also joined by Chancellor Louis Farabee, and we are excited to be here with you this evening. By way of background, one of the responsibilities of my team is to oversee and support budget development for DCPS. This hearing is an important opportunity for us to hear testimony from all of you so we can understand your priorities. So we're excited to be here tonight with you. We'll take a look at the agenda. And you can see here that we'll begin with an introduction and overview by Chancellor Farabee and myself, followed by hearing from you, public testimony. We'll be hearing from community members, parents, organizations, and others during this period. We do ask that if you're not presenting, that you please turn on mute and turn off your cameras. We will be live streaming the hearing through our DC Public Schools YouTube page at the web address at the bottom of this screen. And if, as a speaker, you are experiencing challenges at any time connecting with us this evening, please communicate that with the host in the chat box or send an email to ceo.info@k12.dc.gov. And as noted, we do have ASL interpretation available as well as Spanish interpretation when needed. You can see the link there for Spanish interpretation. So with that, it is my pleasure to turn things over to Chancellor Farabee.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you, Deputy Chancellor Maestera. We're excited, as stated earlier, for you to be with us tonight to talk about the DCPS budget and budget development process. Tonight, we'll continue the dialogue around the resources that are needed to support students in schools individually and the unique needs in each school community, along with the needs of students across the district. Our team will share more tonight about our revised budget model. You may know we started this model last year to help to ensure that resources are equitably distributed to our schools, in addition to enhance transparency as well. We hope to educate you more tonight on the benefits of this model, and we also want to ensure, as we deepen your understanding of this model, we have an opportunity to be responsive to additional questions or thoughts that you may have around how schools are funded. As we go forward in the presentation, I do want to highlight again what the budget model looks like and our goals associated with this model. DCPS has, again, a unique budget model that is meant to be clear, fair, transparent, and also viable in terms of equity and financial stability. Our school budget is based on three factors, that is enrollment, need, and stability. More specifically, when we speak to need, we have additional resources that are allocated to populations of students that we know need additional resources that can come in a form of additional weighted dollars per student, which can include areas such as students receiving special education services, students receiving English language learning services as well, and the like. And tonight you'll get an opportunity to hear more about how those resources are allocated. As stated, enrollment is a critical factor in distributing resources to school, but it's not the only one. We are excited that DCPS continues to grow in its enrollment. And in the second time, and most recently in past the pandemic, DCPS has exceeded our milestone of over 50,000 students in the district. We know enrollment is the foundation to ensure that every student is served well and they are receiving what they need. But we do look at other factors of enrollment year over year to ensure that students in schools have the appropriate resources. Tonight, you get an opportunity to hear about that as we talk more about our safety net that is applied when there's changes in enrollment. We also provide targeted supports for students that have special needs or in special populations, and tonight you'll also hear about that. The last bucket that we think about is stability. Stability is important because I mentioned earlier, we do understand and acknowledge that enrollment does fluctuate from year to year. Therefore, DCPS is providing greater flexibility to schools and administrators how they're allocating resources, but also ensuring that there is stability in resources year over year to support programs and services that we know that are essential to ensuring that students feel loved, challenged, and prepared. So we go to the next slide. I also want to highlight what this means for schools in their implementation of our budget. Each school will realize a budget that is different and unique to them and will also benefit accordingly. It's also important to know that in our revised model, the goal is to ensure that school leaders are empowered in concert with their schools and their local school advisory teams to craft plans and staffing models that best support the students in that school and families in that school, also incorporating the local context. By design, we've given more decision-making to our school leaders and our local schools advisory teams to be responsive to school needs. We know that schools have very different populations and need resources accordingly. In addition to providing leaders with more flexibility with spending, we also have provided more transparency to take out the additional study needed to understand the DCPS budget. We've also provided overall year-over-year data points for families and communities to follow to ensure that there is better alignment to student need, but also clear lines of transparency as well. Year-over-year, schools will be able to provide the resources needed to their students and families. And as a part of the DCPS model, we are working to ensure that not only there's flexibility, but also we are providing resources for schools to align to the needs of the context of their school communities. You'll get opportunity to hear more about that tonight, but again, I do want to reiterate the points around greater transparency to ensure there's no guesswork in how schools are funded, flexibility for decision-making, and also the ability for school leaders and local school advisory team to align those resources with the needs of the students and families in the building. With that, I'm going to turn it back over to Dr. Mastera, who's going to share a little bit more about these points and how schools are funded in DCPS.
Thank you, Chancellor Farabee. I appreciate the overview that you provided. I think you went into a great amount of detail. And so I'll just follow up by sharing again that our focus on the model allows us to provide more transparency for schools, more flexibility for school leaders, and again, better alignment to student needs. And so we continue to work to support this new model. We're excited to see how the model has supported schools in the first year of implementation, and we continue to refine the model moving forward. And so tonight we, again, are very interested in hearing your input as we continue to refine and support the model moving forward. Before we jump into hearing from you, I do want to touch on a couple of notes about our local school advisory teams. We know that the LSATs play a significant and important role in budget development, and these are teams made up of parents, staff, and community members that work with our school leaders on a range of topics, including identifying school priorities and developing the school's budget. We have additional information here for you on the screen. If you're not familiar with your school's LSAT or would like to participate, please go ahead and reach out for more information, and we're happy to make that connection for you. And again, a little bit more on our LSAT work. We support schools in meeting with their LSATs regularly to develop priorities. Our teams typically meet monthly throughout the school year to work on the range of topics that I shared. At each meeting, we also look for a brief update on the school's comprehensive school plan, which is our annual plan for each school, and their priority goals to continue their progress. And so those updates are meant to be touch points with the LSATs to both share progress and get input. Elections for LSAT chairs are held at the end of each school year and voted on by peers, and staff and parents. The principal and school's administrative staff host the election process with the assistance of one of our community action team or CAT team members from our central services team. We look for each school to have a functioning LSAT body by no later than October of each year. Again, that's critical to support the work that I just described. And then we also work throughout the budget season with our CAT team and our school finance team to host webinars and trainings on the budget process, as well as to support the LSAT election process. So we can make sure that the LSATs are aware of and supporting the process as intended. Please be on the lookout for additional information via our LSAT newsletters. And again, if you'd like to get involved, please contact that email address that we have been sharing. So now I want to touch on a few logistics for tonight. I know that Mr. Elar shared several of these at the beginning of our time together, but again, we just want to highlight a few things before we jump in. First, we ask that you keep your testimony to 3 minutes. We will be keeping time and we'll provide a gentle reminder when your time is up. And that allows us to make sure we hear from everybody. Second, if you are a member of a group, we ask that you identify one speaker to represent the group, and that speaker can then testify on behalf of the group. And last, please speak slowly and clearly. We've touched on the fact that we have ASL interpretation available here, and we also want to make sure that we're able to record your testimony and be able to review it after the meeting. So we want to make sure that, again, if you are speaking, that we are able to understand you, and you being clear helps us with that. A few other notes for those who are planning to testify. We will be announcing the speaker list in small groups, and a member of the team will also be contacting you via the chat to make sure you are prepared to speak during your time. Please message the host privately in the chat to confirm that you are present to speak. This will help us with the transition and flow of speakers throughout the evening. Please also, again, keep your cameras off and your microphones on mute until you testify. Again, we will let you know when we're ready to have you come on board to speak. And then last, please send your testimony in either PDF format or Word document format if you have not done so already. And you see our email here for you to be able to do that. And now we will transition to public testimony so that we can begin hearing from you. And the first group we have ready to testify will be Grace Hugh, followed by Casey Boyd, followed by Juniper Ho, and then followed by Sandra Moscoso. So we'll start with Miss Hu.
Good evening. My name is Grace Hu, and I'm a parent at Amadon Bowen Elementary. I'm here today on behalf of Digital Equity in DC Education, a parent coalition that's been working to close the digital divide and provide a 21st century education for our children. We've come a long way since we first met with DCPS leadership in 2018. And while DCPS has made significant progress in some areas, we're still noticing issues in areas such as school level asset management and digital literacy instruction. On devices, we were encouraged to see the FY23 investment in student and teacher devices. We asked you to maintain the 1-to-1 student device ratio for grades 3 to 12 throughout the school year and continue to provide a device for every teacher. Additionally, we urge you to plan for and fund a robust tech refresh cycle with sufficient contingency inventory of devices to account for annual device loss. On classroom technology, we're encouraged by the recent investments in new smartboards. However, the smartboard installation project has been a failure. We understand that the selected vendor was only able to install a small number of smartboards per day, and that some schools have been struggling with outdated equipment in the classroom, while smartboards have been sitting in boxes waiting to be installed. We urge you to resolve the installation issues as soon as possible so that schools can make use of smart boards that you've invested in. Additionally, we urge you to make sure all classroom technology is ordered, installed, and ready to be used on the first day of school. IT asset management continues to be a significant challenge for schools. Some schools have struggled with keeping up their IT inventories. And since DCPS relies on these inventories to determine the number of computers to provide to schools, outdated inventories led to delays in central office provision of the correct number of student devices to schools. We still do not understand why DCPS has not provided additional asset management support to schools, including requesting that Octo provide more support to schools in this area. On digital literacy, we're not seeing consistent support and teaching of digital literacy skills at schools. The extent to which digital literacy skills are taught often depends on whether a school principal or school staff have prioritized instruction in this area. And so we urge you to provide teachers and schools with the time and the supports to fully integrate digital literacy into curriculum. Without robust digital literacy skills, it's difficult for our students to perform well in the online standardized tests and grade level assessments. And lastly, this past September, we were delighted to see the DC Council pass the DCPS Digital Equity Act of 2022, which requires a comprehensive technology plan and school level technology assessments. We look forward to working with you on the implementation of this important law. Thank you for the opportunity to testify.
Thank you. And now we will hear from Casey Boyd.
Thank you for the opportunity to provide testimony this evening. My name is Casey Boyd, and I'm a school librarian in Ward 6 at Jefferson Middle School, and I'm also a DCPS Library Leadership Corps leader. During the 2012 school year, many school librarians throughout the district were eliminated from school budgets, and this subsequently impacted student achievement. Now, nearly 10 years later, we're still faced with the uncertainty of our positions. Year after year, we wait to see if school librarians will be included in the budget. I've often asked the question, why is the school library position always left very vulnerable in the DCPS central or school budget? Why do school librarians have to hold their breath every year to see if the position will be budgeted? I've received responses that range from budget cuts, principal autonomy, to LSAT choice, despite many of our students not reading on grade level throughout the district. There is a misconception that if students read more, that they will become better readers, but that is not solely the case. When students find that they're interested and feel a connection to the material, they will want to read more. That then translates into them becoming better readers. And in the library, students aren't told what to read. They are free to explore and find books that speak to them. In my opinion, that's priceless. Now, there's over 30 years of research that is associated with the correlation of a full-time certified librarian and a well-stocked school library, and how with the correlation of the two, students perform at a higher level on standardized tests than students that don't have that access. Last year, DCPS library programs had over 1 million print digital content resources used for the school year of 2021 through the present. Students use Destiny, Print, and Sora ebooks to encourage students to engage in independent reading. My question to DCPS leadership is this: do we want to see this usage continue, where students have access to ebooks and research materials to help them achieve successfully? Do we want our students to receive the social and emotional support of a school librarian and school libraries who can provide the resources and that support? I do want to take this further in closing. I find that it's one thing to have proper staffing and funding in place. It's another to provide the access. Currently, we have some librarians that have been asked to teach foreign language and home economics classes, while others are serving as permanent substitutes. Now, I do want to emphasize, we believe that we should be team players within our schools, but when we are moved from our primary responsibility, students lose. So those of us that have spoken up about this have been retaliated against, and it's just not fair. So in closing, I'm going to say all of the above budgeting and internal scheduling adjustments that can correct the aforementioned challenges. The school library is the heart of the school and a center of learning where students can read, discover, and call this location in the school a home away from home. For fiscal year 24, please provide the funding and support and proper scheduling, please, so that we can have a successful future in serving the students that we are committed to. Thank you.
Thank you. And next, we'll hear from Juniper Ho. Ms. Ho, I think you're still on mute. There we go.
My name is Juniper Ho, and I'm a 4th grader at Amadon Bowen Elementary School. I would like to ask you to spend more money on increasing aid and substitute salaries, putting money into computers, and giving schools good materials. I think you should put more money into funding teacher aid and substitute salaries. Teacher aides and substitutes get paid much less than general teachers. Also, DCPS leadership gets paid a huge amount, which is unfair. Teacher aides get paid on average only a little more than minimum wage. Substitutes get paid about $160 per day if they work. That can result in money problems for them and can mean if something bad happens, they may have a hard time doing their job or even getting to their job. I've seen in my years in Amadon Bowen that the teacher aides and substitutes work very hard at managing kids. Meanwhile, other people may not work half as hard but still get paid more. I think the aides and substitutes should have an increase in their salaries. Another thing I think you should consider is putting more money into computers. I've seen for myself that sometimes computers don't work or are very slow. I also see that there are not enough spare computers all the time, so sometimes a student takes another student's computer, and when that student looks for their computer, they can't find it. Then that can cause confusion that disrupts the entire class. The thing is, computers are an important part of learning these days, so every child needs a good quality computer. I think you should either put money into more spare computers or put money into making sure the computers are working well. You should also give schools enough decent quality materials. When the school year started, there were not enough headphones, dry erase markers, and pencil sharpeners. Also, sometimes dry erase markers stop working and parts of headphones break off. Without headphones, when students are working on their online work, they hear all the other computers and they cannot focus on their own work. School supplies are essential to learning, and students like me need them. As some of the top people in DCPS, it is your responsibility to provide materials that work to schools. It is not the responsibility of teachers to buy them. I think you should use your money to provide enough decent quality materials for the schools. Thank you for listening to me.
Thank you. And next we have Sandra Moscoso.
Good evening, DCPS budget team and Chancellor Farabee. I'm Sandra Moscoso, a member of the School Without Walls High School Home and School Association and LSAT, and an officer in the Ward 2 Ed Council and Ward 6 Public Schools Parent Organization. Our schools need budget stability. Unfortunately, year after year, central office has not been successful in securing budgets that meet the needs of our schools. Funding gaps are only filled after citywide fights that require DC Council to intervene. The erratic budget process is exacerbating teacher turnover. Please correct this by providing schools with adequate budget envelopes from the start. Even in circumstances when communities succeed in restoring budgets and positions, trust is lost and educators leave seeking stability. At School Without Walls, this played out in school year 22 when a foreign language teacher's position was cut. After months of citywide advocacy, the position was restored. However, the damage was done and the teacher, a 10-year veteran at the school, left. On paper, the position was funded, but in reality, many students paid the price of a chaotic semester without a teacher. What will happen in school year 24? Under the current DCPS budget model, when DCPS's mystery temporary stability funds are gone. As things stand, School Without Walls will lose 3 staff members, not due to a drop in enrollment, not due to a drop in student needs, but due to DCPS's underfunding of the school. And I do want to take issue on the insistence that the new budget model is more transparent. Just because you say it's transparent doesn't mean it is. Most of the school budgets I saw last year had one-time stability funds labeled Mayor's Recovery Funds or Hold Harmless Funds, with no indication as to how those amounts were formulated or allocated. So I want to add that point to my testimony. DCPS must fund new requirements, not force schools to cut programming. Changes to DCPS policy and requirements that don't come with budget support cause damage to school programming. We learned this lesson from Hardy's LSAT about the devastating impact a change in special ed funding requirements had on the school's scheduling and student access to music, foreign language, and more. New policies or funding needs should not require principals to cut existing school resources and programming. I want to support funding, implementing, and maintaining and providing oversight on technology and support the testimonies of the Digital Equity in DC Schools testimony. And finally, I just want to ask to please finalize the WTU contract with an agreement that is fit for 2022, that addresses wages, planning time, and job flexibility. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next group will include Betsy Wolf, Ahmed Nuruddin, Kathy Riley, and Abigail Paulson. We'll start with Betsy Wolf.
Hi, good evening. I'm Betsy Wolf, and I'm a parent at Amazon Bowen. Thank you for the opportunity to testify tonight. Let me start by saying that I believe we have the same goals for all students, and that is for all students to flourish. But it's easier to give lip service to equity and a lot harder to actually implement equitable policies and allocate resources equitably. How DCPS allocates its resources tells the story about what it cares about. I'm going to raise awareness about 3 parts of the story. First, we're not telling the truth about how much we're spending on students, and we're spending less on targeted students than we say we are. DCPS did not give schools adequate funds in the student-based budgeting base weight to cover basic general education costs, things like assistant principal, grade level teachers, a minimum number of related arts teachers. So for example, Amazon Bowen was short on the student-based budgeting base weight funding by about $377,000. So what this means is that it had to use $377,000 of its targeted funding on these basic costs. So when you look at the targeted funding for Amazon Bowen, you don't get an honest picture of how much money you were actually spending that's supplemental that could be targeted to bolster student learning for students behind grade level. It makes it more difficult to have these conversations with DC leadership as an advocate if DCPS isn't straightforward about what is covered in various buckets of money. The bare minimum staff needed for a school to operate should be under the base weight and not under targeted funds, period, so that we can actually get to the honest conversations about what we're spending and whether what we're spending is sufficient for the work at hand. Number 2, DCPS continues to use self-contained special ed classrooms as an unfunded mandate. For example, DCPS opened 3 new CES, which is a classroom for autistic children in Amazon Bowen this year. And none of the staff had relevant training. So the school had to spend over $50,000 of its own budget on training for staff, so the staff would be adequately prepared. Self-contained classrooms are DCPS run, but DCPS doesn't cover all of the costs, and it doesn't also cover a lot of the burdens like hiring teachers that come with the staff. So DCPS posture for these self-contained classrooms should be, how can I set these students up for success? And instead it's, how can I do the bare minimum and push the cost and burden down to the individual schools? This says a lot about what DCPS cares about. Number 3, given that teachers haven't had a new contract within 3 years, DCPS continues to tell the story that DC is a toxic place for teachers to work. This goes back for as long as I've lived in DC. It's far time to change that narrative, don't you think? Let's start with this teacher contract. Along those lines, schools have been short-staffed since before the pandemic, and the pandemic has made it worse. Schools don't have enough paraprofessionals and substitutes to hire, in part because the pay for these positions is so low. Staffing shortages means that students are shifted around to other classrooms during the day when teachers are absent, which happens all the time, which means that no learning happens. My kids have told me as much. So there's learning loss happening every single day, and we're not doing much about it. In addition, a recent education study that just came out found that incentive pay worked to help recruit substitutes in hard to staff schools in Chicago public schools. The same thing could be done in DCPS. DCPS should implement policies to ensure there's equity for students in terms of adequate staff coverage in underserved schools, and also equity for workers, which matters in terms of having reasonable wages for paraprofessionals and substitutes. There's a lot of work to be done. It's hard work, but we can do it if we work together. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And next we have Ahmed Nuruddin.
Good evening. My name is Ahmed Nuruddin. I live in Ward 6, community member on the Columbia Heights Education Campus, LSAT. First of all, I want to hope every one of you had a great Wednesday. And as a former PTA president at Amazon, before it was Amadon Bowen, it does my heart great to hear the students and the parents advocate for Amadon. It is truly one of your great schools. I think that seeing Chancellor Farabee and Deputy Mr. Darrow, you know my issues are going to be at-risk funding, specialty school funding, the 6 to 12 education campus model of, or component of the budget model that was abandoned without any explanation or justification, at least none that, as the chairperson of the ANC, of the LSAT at Columbia Heights, we heard about. I've communicated directly with you, Dr. Mosquero, about some of these issues, and would appreciate your taking the time to give me a direct response. Those things that we've not gotten addressed. It's hard to understand how, with the concentration of at-risk students at some schools, the funding breakout. I see in the submitted budget, the funding allocations, but there's no specific line item that says this is the amount that the school got for at-risk because they had a concentration of 7% or above 40%. This is a lump sum. And knowing a little bit about math, it looks a little bit manipulated. So I'd like to ask you to do that. The other thing that is troubling is in terms of the ESL policy that's going to be changed. What are you planning for in terms of the budget anomaly that's going to be in front of us shortly? I liked Betsy's question about the, or a comment about the difficulty in understanding what do you mean by transparency. From my vantage point, it's not there.
Thank you.
The time is up.
Yes, thank you. I hope you're also submitting testimony of your complete comments for us as well. Thank you.
Yeah, I would definitely do that. As I said, a good deal of it is in the letter that I provided to you, Dr. Mosquero, back in. You're nodding, so I know you know the letter I'm talking about. It
Yes.
has not been.
Thank you. We now will hear from Kathy Riley.
Thank you. Thank you for this opportunity to testify. My name is Kathy Riley, and I have the privilege and opportunity to facilitate and manage SHAPE, and as well as the Ward for Ed Alliance and Seed for DC. We're very pleased that enrollment is up and strongly up in 9th and 10th grade. DCPS will need to maintain high school funding as well as ensure the elementary and middle schools are invested in and stable to keep these students living in the district and enrolled in DCPS, because we're in a very competitive environment. These are the items that rise to the top of the list right now. We need a contract with the WTU with issues of workplace flexibility and safety, as well as salary addressed. Safety, locks, alarms, protocols. Buildings have to be secure. This means alarms on doors in secondary schools, classroom door locks quickly repaired, and most importantly, front doors repaired to lock automatically upon closure. Many of these issues are in modernized buildings, and this cannot just be all right. Collaboration and training for safe passage workers and school staff at hotspots like bus stops and the metro. Look into having students use their ID number if they don't have their card. Reduce points of friction as much as possible. The FY24 school budget allocations give to schools. You have to give additional funds for salary and supply cost increases. A constant budget with inflation and higher salaries is a substantial budget cut. I hope this makes sense. We just can't do that. We can't say we got the same amount of money, but everything in the budget costs more. Secondly, whether it is XQ or ESSR funds, there has to be a plan where outside money runs out. DCPS is a system, not a bunch of independent schools. There are advantages. DCPS can leverage central office and the resources of a whole system. It is not only about accountability and standardization. It can be about creativity and opportunities across schools, like being able to offer advanced language, math, or elective options, sometimes virtually or with part-time teachers with flexible schedules. For the buildings maintenance, DCPS is in charge of a number of areas, including the CTE program equipment. For example, at Roosevelt, the freezer and refrigerator periodically malfunction, and ovens and the stoves don't work. Advance and fund the digital equity work. And next, modernization. You're going to hear today from Whittier. The building has deteriorated since its rating in the PACE Act. The organizing effort by this community is in response to conditions that need to be addressed for the health and safety of the students and staff. HVAC and access to drinking water remain as issues that have not been addressed. We need your help, your voice, and your advocacy on this. And lastly, DCPS is one of 69 local education agencies. However, DCPS has over half of the public school students. I feel you've been underrepresented at a number of citywide settings, like budget and lottery, for example. We need you to fight harder, use staff and advocates strategically on this, especially with the facility master plan and adequacy study coming up in 2023. We want to ensure that DCPS voices for over 50,000 students and their families are passionately represented. And in closing, I'd like to wish you a happy Thanksgiving next week. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Riley.
Thank you.
Now we have Abigail Paulson.
Hello, good evening all. I'm Abby Paulson, co-president for the Hardy Middle School PTO, DCPS parent of a Jackson Reed 9th grader and Hardy 6th grader. I've been part of DCPS since 2014 and at Hardy Middle School since 2015. Hardy Middle School is here today as the bellwether of unintended consequences that stem from the current budget model. 8 additional participants are here from Hardy to speak about their lived experiences with the implementation of this formula. Chancellor, the follow-up from our meeting may have slipped through the cracks, but here are some of the answers we were looking for. The majority of classes at Hardy are at or significantly over contracted class sizes. I use the word significantly as out of 86 sections, 74 sections are at or above capacity. 43 sections are at 30 students or more, with our highest in an 8th grade science class with a class of 35 students. This is not due to a master schedule mismatch. This is due to not enough staff members to cover the number of students needing to be in a classroom at any given time. For those of you not aware of what happens when your enrollment grows under the current budget model, Hardy lost 3 teachers and additionally is unable to fund more than 1 front office person and has the principal as a grade level head since we don't have an assistant principal for each grade. A class period was removed from the course schedule. Our block schedule has 90-minute periods for 11 to 14-year-olds. We have 2 lunch periods to service 566 students in a 2-hour period. On paper, everything at Hardy should be fine. In reality, Hardy is not fine. It has been argued that no other school has as many arts choices as Hardy. That may be true, but we also need to consider that Hardy doesn't have things other middle schools do have, like IB programming and language immersion. Certainly those schools receive additional funding to support those programs. Hardy is known and celebrated citywide for our arts programming. And if identifying our school as a STEAM school is what needs to happen in order to check the box, to allocate funds to maintain the program that already has a proven track record of success, then let's do the work to make it happen before our great program is lost due to a lack of vision and creative problem solving. We are used to doing hard things at Hardy. We are ready. For school year 22-23, we ask for the reinstatement of the hold harmless funds back to the Hardy budget. For school year 23-24 and moving forward, we ask for the next conversation with the budget office to work through what the funding model looks like for Hardy Middle School and by extension, MacArthur High School. There aren't many of us left who remember where Hardy was just a short 8 years ago. Declining enrollment, pitiful in-boundary participation, minuscule parent and community involvement, and student safety in their school was in question. We have turned all of these things around. Don't cut us off at the knees. We are sliding. I am here to affirm that things are sliding and parent confidence is wavering. Hardy needs DCPS to look up from counting the beans to see if the outcome is really what you are intending, because we are the test case. If nothing changes, outcomes will be dire. Joy is not prescriptive, it is organic. We have the data that shows that our paring down is not getting the results we need. So
Thank you.
I
Ms.
have more
Wilson.
testimony here for you to read, and I'm happy to continue our conversation as we have before. Thank you, Chancellor. Thank you, Amy.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
And our next group of 4 individuals is Cedric Hendricks, Grace Ladd, Joshua Wiley, and Arthur Mola. And we will start with Cedric Hendricks.
Well, good evening, everyone. I'm a parent of a 6th grader at the School Without Walls at Francis Stevens, located in Ward 2. However, we're presently operating out of the old Banneker High School because we're undergoing the modernization project that we have waited for so long. I also serve on the school improvement team. I'm going to touch on our budget, state of our swing space, and also on the modernization of our home site back on N Street. For the school year 2023, we received a budget of approximately $8.9 million. That allowed us to open our school fully staffed, as well as with the desired programming in place. And as we await your delivery to us of our proposed budget for school year 2024, we respectfully request that our funding be held constant. Now, a couple of things to bring to your attention that we urgently need your attention to. This school year began, as I said, with our modernization, but the problem we're confronted now at the Banneker site is that there is no heat there. Our administrative staff has brought this to the attention of the central office, and we've gone a few days without heat, kids wearing clothes in school, and also we have some water leaks that have made some of our floors unsafe. Our kids are wearing coats, and obviously that's not an appropriate situation for our students to learn in or our teachers to teach in. Also, with respect to our modernization project, we recently sent a letter to our facilities project manager and the design and construction team pointing out some concerns we have about the latest design that they presented us. I have copied that letter to you, or it's attached to the testimony that I submitted. And I do urge you to take a look at it, because there are some safety concerns that we raised there. If left unattended, will be a problem for us down the line, as well as for you. So I want to close and simply ask for your help in addressing these problems. You know, it's going to go down in the 30s tonight. According to the weather service, it'll be 36 degrees when school opens in the morning between 8 and 9 o'clock. That's not a situation that I want to send my kid into. But unless you do something about it, that situation won't change. So Chancellor, meet me at the school in the morning, bring your coat, and come and see what the problems are, and bring the team necessary to solve them. Thank you very much. It'd be good to see you again.
Thank you, Mr. Hendricks. Next, we will have Grace Ladd.
Hello, my name is Grace Ladd and I teach at Whittier Elementary School. I decided to speak today because of the ongoing modernization efforts led by our parent-teacher organization. Currently, our school is on schedule to be modernized starting in 2026 and finishing in 2028. I am urging the Budget Committee to move up these plans to be completed as soon as possible. You will hear about the multitude of safety concerns in our building from other Whittier community members, but I would like to specifically focus on the issue of elevators. For context, our building has two wings. The original building was built in the 1920s, and the newer wing was built in the 1960s. Despite ADA and IDEA both being passed in 1990, we do not have any elevators on either side of our three-story building. This has adversely affected our students, staff, and community. We are unable to properly serve students who cannot use stairs, which affects our enrollment numbers and funding. Additionally, many of our staff dealing with ongoing health concerns have no choice but to walk up and down multiple flights of stairs every day. We have an early childhood student with a disability who has to be carried upstairs every day. We had an older student with a leg injury who had to be carried upstairs by a staff member every time he went to class. This is not safe or fair for our students. DCPS's response to these issues was to build an elevator on only one side of the building, leaving the newer wing with our early childhood and self-contained special education classes waiting. Last year, I was sharing a classroom with two other resource teachers due to the limited space in our building. They decided to start construction on the elevator in the middle of our room at the beginning of park testing season. Over 1/3 of our classroom was walled off to make space for the elevator. We endured our frustrations with the promise that the elevator would be available for use by the start of this school year. It's currently November 16th, and the elevator is not even close to being completed. Construction workers have been working on it during the school day, meaning that there is noise and equipment in the hallways while we're trying to teach. The district needs to expedite the process of moving us into a swing space and starting modernization. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next, we will hear from Joshua Wiley.
Good evening, and thank you for allowing me to testify today. My name is Joshua Wiley, and I'm the assistant principal at Whittier Elementary School. Many school leaders will not testify about their school buildings due to fear of retaliation from instructional superintendents and senior leadership, but my fear of students in an unsafe learning environment supersedes that. I am testifying today about the modernization of Whittier Elementary School. Whittier has a phrase we say to students: if trouble finds you, find the nearest adult for a solution to their problem. In the last few years, I don't feel like I've been able to embody that phrase and meet the needs of my students. I feel helpless when students come to me about the difficulties they experience in an inadequate school building. I cannot help them find a solution for a leaky roof or an outdated HVAC system. So I'm going to the next nearest adult, you, Dr. Farabee. Modernization at Whittier has been overlooked and overdue for far too long. Patchwork repairs have plagued Whittier for years. Lead abatement with open windows. I have pictures. Whittier received a new roof in 2020, and it hasn't stopped leaking since. Check the work orders. The elevator project is only on one side of the building, leaving 50% of the building out of ADA compliance once the elevator is finally completed. Several students cannot attend Whittier Elementary School due to lack of ADA accessible classrooms. Why are we denying students their educational rights? Imagine dropping your student off at school and dodging falling bricks, breathing in asbestos in the basement, or the lack of working water fountains for students to use. Over the last 2 years, I've personally been present where we've had hot steam spewing from busted pipes. When companies come for repairs, we've been told it's only a matter of time before it happens again. Steaming hot water, asbestos, leaks, and mold poses a severe safety risk for students, staff, and families. Before my request is disregarded again by DCPS leadership due to not being able to modify the modernization list, I want to identify an error in how schools are prioritized for the modernization. This error has unfortunately bumped Whittier further down the list. Whittier has 6 self-contained classrooms, more than any other DCPS elementary school, which combined currently hold approximately 25 students total. Whittier's building capacity is 520, which is not readjusted for the self-contained classrooms. According to the master facility listing, Whittier is only 70% full. However, all 6 self-contained classrooms are fully or nearly full, bringing Whittier's current capacity to 90%. With this high number of self-contained special education classrooms and constant safety issues present throughout the building, there should be more of an urgency for this request. When you look at the demographics of the schools that have moved up the modernization list, receive building add-ons, or unique swing spaces, it's clear what you must look like or what your zip code must be to have special consideration. I ask that Whittier be moved up the modernization list to begin planning during the fiscal year 2024. If this request is not honored, it further shows a lack of respect for students and staff at Whittier Elementary School. I too am tired of being overlooked. Happy early Thanksgiving.
Thank you, Mr. Wiley. And next we have Principal Mola.
Good evening, everyone. I am Principal Mola, Arthur Mola, proud principal, not only just a proud DCPS principal, but a proud DCPS parent. First, before I begin, I just want to say how exciting it is that this year's budget hearing coincides with our chancellor's first strategic plan with DCPS. And I just want to say how exciting it is. And I hope I could motivate and get everyone excited about that in not only encouraging, but also supporting our chancellor as he gets his opportunity to craft the strategic plan, and that we support him in helping it be a successful strategic plan for the next 5 years. So exciting time in modern DCPS history. As far as my 2 points, it really just focuses on the teacher shortage and operations. First, on the matter of the teacher shortage, I'd like for us to consider a substantial amount of funding to support the sponsorship of foreign internationals, not just for teachers, but for other staff positions. I think we need to embrace the reality that the teacher shortage is not going to improve. The exodus of teachers in schools similar to Cardozo, really created a difficult situation. And a lot of the teacher movement was simply just teachers moving from one school to the next. So obviously that creates a disadvantage for schools like Cardozo, Dunbar, Coolidge, and all of the schools where my esteemed colleagues lead. So I'd like to propose that we allocate a substantial amount of funds to support the division and the department under folks like Nicole Dillard to not only sponsor foreign international teachers, but also to create an induction program for them, provide them with robust PLCs, help them network and adapt to the DMV area. I think it's a big shock for folks when they move to the DMV area, how expensive it is to live out here. So while we want to continue to do our best to try to recruit great talent from within the United States, the reality is that that talent pool is diminishing quickly, and it creates a disadvantage for schools like Cardozo. The second point to the teacher shortage that I would like us to get very creative and bold in funding is to consider some of these reputable organizations that have created some really impressive teaching programs through virtual platforms. So they're affordable, and we could reallocate some of the funding that we're just not going to be able to spend on teaching positions and reallocate those funds to staff, lower level, more entry level staff that would be in charge of supervising the classrooms while they're receiving quality certified instruction from some of these organizations, such as Imagine Learning, to use one as an example. The other idea that just kind of came about from that I didn't think of prior to this testimony was that these lower end jobs actually creates a reasonable pipeline for even some of our recent DCPS alum who need to get into the workforce. And what a great opportunity it would be if DCPS could actually be that workforce for our recently graduated alum, and they could build up their skills and even, who knows, become teachers themselves. So really want to focus on creating some kind of funding sources for these virtual teaching programs that will be delivered in the school. So we're not saying keep the kids at home, but bring the kids to the school, but then, you know, provide them with quality instruction from certified teachers.
Thank
The
you.
last
Mola. Yes.
Yep.
You could just one more minute, and then we'll certainly talk more. I know we'll continue the conversation.
Got it real easy. My last one is on operations, and I think I heard everybody talk about it. I don't know that it's reasonable for us to continue thinking that the cross-agency collaboration between DGS, DCPS operations, and the contracted maintenance consultants is working, and that it's going to get better. What if we reallocated a lot of the funding that's actually earmarked for those agencies and folks working in those agencies? Why not redirect those funds back to the schools? I can easily call a contractor to fix my locks. I could easily call a contractor to fix a door, to fix a camera, an alarm. These are not difficult, high-level, highly skilled repairs. If I had the funds in my local school budget to pay for those things, I would get those things done much quicker. So I'd like us to get a little creative with that and understand that, you know, I know it's a complex organization, but there are some easy fixes to this that we can take care at the school site level, rather than constantly waiting and submitting work orders that oftentimes, you know, get closed out without the repair being made. That's all I have, and I hope everyone has a wonderful evening.
Thank you very much, Principal Mola. I've been informed that Ms. Carson Carr has joined us, so she will be next. Ms. Carson Carr.
Yes, good evening. Can you hear me?
Yes, good evening.
Okay, great. I can't put on my camera because then you won't hear me. Good evening, everyone. Good evening, Chancellor Farabee and everyone else. Capitol Hill Montessori at Logan is in need of adequate staffing, especially for the middle school. They also need innovative course offerings such as coding and robotics. We also need more money to remodel and redesign the fallen tree playground. It is a safety hazard for the children. Secondly, Burville Elementary has issues with its HVAC system. The building is hot in the summer and cold in the winter. What would happen if the students didn't have to worry about being so cold in the building in the winter and so very hot in the summer? And we're talking about spring, and what learning could take place if they could be comfortable. Burville was tested last week for their water, but they also need water coolers now with the supply of water as long as this situation is happening. DCPS needs to find funding so it can teach reading through 5th grade in every elementary school. The test scores has proven this. Lastly, I'm asking that we test all 12th graders for dyslexia this year. We know that at least 10% or more of them have this issue and are struggling. It would be an eye-opener for them. This is DCPS' last chance to help them. It would help them to become productive citizens. Please, I'm begging you for the children, help them. And everyone have a happy Thanksgiving. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We are now going to transition to our next group of 4. and that will be Yana Conti Jones, Agnes Wanderer, Abigail Golden Vasquez, and Sonia Walt. And we'll start with Miss Conti Jones.
Hello, everyone. My name is Yana Conti Jones, and I'm a junior at Phelps Ace High School. I'm a part of the organization Community Enrichment Project's EE program, where DC Youth focuses on local issues. I'm here today to ask DCPS to provide adequate support for appropriate student disciplinary actions. Me and other DCPS students and families have recognized a lack of fair and just disciplinary procedures. This issue is important to me because I and other students have witnessed multiple fights being broken up by students while security was available during these unsettling situations. Our very own security officers conspiring against students with other students, and teachers being aware of heated student arguments and blatantly ignoring them. Many of these students who get into these altercations have already been in multiple fights, which disturb the learning environment. However, despite their behavior, the students do not seem to receive proper consequences and help, but they continue to rejoin the DCPS community. I believe this is unfair to students, including those who are causing the disruptions, teachers, and school staff. This is an important issue, and we need to consider how this affects us as students and the education we are trying to get every day. I believe this issue can be fixed by listening to the suggestions of DCPS students. For example, me and other students have been sharing our thoughts on DCPS issues on our social media account at EE Project on Instagram and TikTok. We believe students are the best people to talk to about these things because we see and know everything that happens in our schools. Two specific suggestions we have are related to DCPS programs and programs provided by outside organizations of DCPS. The FY21 DC budget included funding for a 13-member social emotional learning and school culture team that would support schools with student discipline in fair ways. We would like to request these supports be provided to all schools. Some students who are causing disruptions truly need this. Additionally, OST programs like the Community Enrichment Project have limited budgets and operate in various schools. It would be near impossible for them to continue to support these students if DCPS does not reverse its decision to no longer cover security costs for the free after-school programming it provides to students. Chancellor Farabee has said that many after-school programs will have to cover the cost of security starting next school year at an average rate of $45 per hour. The cost for security coverage could easily amount to over $30,000 a school year. We hope this can be avoided for the sake of students and the school CEP operates in. Thank you for taking the time to hear my testimony today.
Thank you very much. Agnes Wanderer.
Good evening.
Good evening.
My name is Agnes Wanderer, and I'm the parent of two students in DCPS schools. My son is in 7th grade at Hardy Middle School, and I also have a daughter in 4th grade at Eaton Elementary. Both of my children have attended DCPS schools since kindergarten and have had excellent educational opportunities until the start of this school year. Due to the changes made last spring in the way that DCPS school budgets are formulated, Hardy Middle School was forced to cut 3 teacher positions, including 2 elective teachers. Hardy's consistent growth in the number of enrolled students over the last decade proved to be a disadvantage under the new budget model, and the resulting cuts have seriously impacted the current student body. The reduction in staff has resulted in larger class sizes, which you heard from Abby earlier, reduced elective offerings, and longer class periods for this school year, which are all detrimental to learning outcomes. However, the most serious impact of the changes for our family has been the loss of an entire class offering from student schedules. During the 21-22 school year, Hardy students took 4 core classes, math, ELA, social studies, and science, 1 foreign language, and 2 electives, which could either be a year-long or semester-long offering. Given the positions that were eliminated, the student body had to be divided among fewer available instructors, which has resulted not only in larger class sizes, but also the loss of an entire elective option from student schedules. This school year, students are only able to take the 4 core classes, 1 foreign language, and 1 semester-long elective, so that our children are receiving 14% less education than they were last year, because they are taking 6 academic subjects instead of 7. As an example, last year, in addition to the 4 core classes and Italian, my son was able to take a year-long advanced band class to continue his instrumental music studies, as well as a semester-long computer applications class, which is balanced with health and PE in the other semester. This year, beyond the core and Italian classes, he's only able to take one semester-long elective. In order to funnel more kids into the remaining elective options, Hardy's 2 music teachers have had to switch from offering year-long instrumental music classes at multiple levels to offering only semester-long general music education classes in order to accommodate the larger number of students who did not have sufficient other elective options. This has decimated the music program, which was previously a leading music education program in the district. Last year, the school offered beginning, intermediate, and advanced levels of both orchestra and band, as well as a jazz band. These 7 ensembles were available for students to begin or continue instrumental music. The program served as an excellent preparation for music students applying to DCPS's Duke Ellington School for the Arts, which has lost a key feeder program due to these changes. Although the music teachers are currently offering once-a-week optional ensembles to students who already play an instrument during advisory periods, these are not graded courses and do not meet often enough to truly advance student skills. My submitted testimony also includes the devastating impact of having lost the computer applications teacher, which of course, technology skills are foundational to our students' continued education. So I hope that the district will reconsider how it formulates school budgets for the upcoming school year so that prior offerings can be restored at Hardy and other schools don't face similar devastating changes next year once they lose their hold harmless funds. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Ms. Wanderer. And next we'll hear from Abigail Golden Vasquez.
Hello. Hi. Just take me a second to unmute and get my camera going. Hi, good evening. My name is Abigail Golden Vasquez, and I'm the mother of an 8th grade former musician at Hardy Middle School. Thank you for the opportunity to testify. Budget cuts at Hardy Middle School destroyed my son's music ambitions. While at John Eaton, an elementary school with an award-winning music program, my son became an avid and accomplished trumpet player. He was nurtured by outstanding teachers, Mr. Brown and Miss Mystery, to flourish in music performance and even began composing. While in boundary for Deal Middle School, we chose Hardy for its extraordinary music program, which boasted a chorus, a jazz band, orchestra, and strings, a main attractor for the school, which has also served as a feeder of talented students to Duke Ellington School for the Performing Arts. The first year of middle school for him was challenging, as it was for all, because of the COVID-19 quarantine. So he struggled with the online music program. The second year was hybrid and was also challenging, but he continued performing in the end of, he continued performing and participated in the end of year graduation concert. Finally, his third and last year, budget cuts eliminated the music program practically in its entirety. And this was the final straw. My son quit music altogether. Performance classes were discontinued and replaced with one general music class with no performance element. My son said he tried to keep it going over the 3 years, but this was the last straw. If his school wasn't going to take music seriously, why should he? I struggle to understand why DCPS would eliminate a successful signature program in a school recognized for music, pulling the rug out from underneath students and parents who made a choice based on these offerings. The course of action taken not only to decimate the budget, but to remove the crown jewel of Hardy Middle School makes no sense, given the positive outcomes for students that participation in music programs has proven. Catherine Domkoller, Executive Director of Education through Music, writes, there's a heap of incontestable research showing that an education rich in music improves students' cognitive function and academic performance. Joan Littman in the Wall Street Journal notes that a growing body of evidence suggests that music could trump many of the more expensive fixes that we have thrown at the education system. Research shows that music training boosts IQ, focus, and persistence. While it's too late for my son, I urge you to approve a budget that allows Hardy to reinstate its comprehensive music performance and arts programs for future students. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And next we will hear from Sonia Walty. Ms. Walty.
Dear DCPS Community Engagement Team, dear Chancellor Farabee, thank you for the opportunity to testify on behalf of School Without Walls High School's local school advisory team to make 3 requests. First, budgets need to fully fund our high school programming. Post-2020, our high schools need student-centered programs, social emotional support, and robust academic programs that fill gaps while preparing our students for tomorrow's complex realities. The Federal School Emergency Relief Fund, ESSER, has been supplementing our budget, including social workers at our school. When ESSER runs out, our already lean program is headed for a fiscal cliff. And we have heard about fiscal cliff just now on 2 testimonies, where cuts affect teachers, core programs, and student support. Hence, our school budgets need to be fully funded, accounting for losses of federal funding as needed. Second, budget allocations need to account for building-related limits. DCP's budgeting process makes increasing enrollments the sole reliable path to securing a school's budget to fully fund teachers, staff, materials, and existing programs. This fuels an absurd ratcheting up of enrollments. We now have 600 students in a tiny building built for no more than 520. While students have less than 2/3 of the minimum square footage recommended for high school students per DME, roughly half that of the next most crowded public high school, Jackson Reed. 38 full-time and 9 adjunct teachers share a good 25 oversubscribed classrooms with no place to gather or recharge. Only 8 of our teachers have their own classroom. Theater and gym share the cafeteria, imagine that, and classroom-less teachers cart materials around the building. Seeing how tightly packed and slowly our students are able to evacuate when they need to, I don't dare imagine an emergency. Hence, building capacity limits are critical when allocating budgets and developing algorithms to do so. That costs can be met without ratcheting up these enrollment numbers in absurd ways. Third, budgets must be allocated in a predictable manner. This is to reiterate and highlight what Sandra Moscoso stressed in her testimony earlier regarding the destabilizing effect of the current model's unpredictability. In the face of high school needs and a nationwide teacher shortage, our schools need budgetary stability and predictability from the start. Thank you for the opportunity to stress our need for budget stability and the need for a funding formula in which costs can be met without ratcheting up enrollments.
Thank you. Our next group will be Alicia Bolton, Madison Bolton, Lara Stingley, and Maxwell Rabin. Ms. Bolton?
It says the host stopped my video. Can you all hear me?
We can hear you, yes.
Okay, I'll just go on and maybe that can get fixed.
Okay.
So, good evening. My name is Alicia Bolton, and I am a parent at Whittier Elementary in Ward 4. I have a 3rd grader and a kindergartner at Whittier who both love the school, but unfortunately do not have a building that is safe. So I'm testifying to request that Whittier start the building modernization process in fall 2023 for 3 reasons. First, the building is not compliant with the Americans with Disabilities Act. Whittier has gone without an elevator since it was built, which is a nightmare for students and teachers with disabilities who often have to miss out on activities beyond the 1st floor. And while there is an elevator under construction in one wing of the school, the building will still not be compliant after it's done and until other changes are made to bathrooms, classrooms, and so much more. Which means that the students at Whittier will continue to be shortchanged because the district is not living up to its legal obligation and promise to provide an equitable learning environment for all students. Second, the building has experienced chronic roof leaks. The resulting water damage is dangerous because it negatively impacts air quality and subjects students and teachers to health complications. A previous study by the Harvard Public School of Health found that school is the place where children spend most of their time outside of the home, yet common indoor air pollutants in schools have been associated with acute chronic health conditions like asthma and allergies, as well as impacts on the central nervous system. As a mom of young children, it is disturbing to me And let me repeat that, it is disturbing to me that the very place where I send them to learn could also be the same place that makes them sick. Third, the building does not have the state-of-the-art space and technology necessary to be a premier STEM school, poised to live up to its designation as a green ribbon and Project Lead the Way school. The thought of my girls not being able to do robust experiments that develop critical 21st century skills is disheartening, especially when other students across the district have improved buildings. To attract and retain families in Ward 4 and get them excited about sending their kids to Ida B. Wells and Coolidge, then DC must make a proper first impression that begins with a great experience at Whittier. Otherwise, these families will leave DCPS. I'll close by saying that the PACE Act, despite its good intentions, allows schools like Whittier to fall through the cracks. So my request to DCPS is twofold. First, move Whittier up on the modernization schedule to begin design work this fall 2023. Second, please address the underlying flaws and limitations of the PACE Act. 2023 is the time for the district to show through its budget what it values and who it values. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And is Madison Bolton also speaking?
She is. Let me just get her.
I see you. Wonderful.
All right, come on, Madison. Hold on, we're just going to adjust her height. Stand up. Okay, go ahead.
Hi, my name is Madison Bolton, and I'm in the 3rd grade. I'm here to talk about why Whittier Elementary needs to be fixed. There are 2 main reasons why. The first reason is that Whittier has pipes that are breaking. When the pipes broke inside Whittier on October 18th, it forced all of the children and teachers to come out of the building and go to the school across from Whittier, which is Ida B. Wells. When we got there, we had to sit at tables in the cafeteria until the fire trucks were gone. We did not learn anything while we were there. We got to talk and we drew pictures and ate snacks. Then the teachers called each homeroom to get in line and go back to Whittier. The second reason is that people with physical disabilities that cannot go up the stairs or use the elevator because the people who are working on the elevator could not finish it at the start of the school year. One of my classmates broke his ankle. He had a cast with crutches and he could not get up the stairs. He missed a few classes. One of the teachers had to pick him up and carry him upstairs. I don't think it's fair that students with disabilities who have crutches or a wheelchair don't have an elevator when they need to use it. I also don't think that it's fair that Whittier does not have a new building like Ida B. Wells. Please fix Whittier starting in fall 2023 so that my classmates and I can play and learn safely. Thank you for your time. It was such an honor to be here.
Thank you, Madison. And next we have Laura Stingley.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Thank you for the opportunity to speak this evening. I'm a parent of a DCPS elementary school student, and we have been active participants and partners with DCPS for over 2 years. I'm speaking tonight because our children need our assistance and time is of the essence. Since the beginning of the pandemic in early 2020, I've attended several virtual meetings where DCPS discussed and sought input from parents and the community about developing strategies for overcoming students' learning loss. Indeed, the math and reading assessment numbers are stark, and addressing learning loss must be a priority. However, our children have a greater need during these challenging times. I am requesting additional funding and further development to implement social emotional interactive curriculum in our classrooms. Our children need immediate help in maneuvering the obstacle course of social emotional development and practicing appropriate and effective communication skills. Currently, the schools that are incorporating social emotional curriculum are treating it as a special. They're doing it once a week, and that is insufficient. It really needs to be integrated throughout the curriculum on a daily basis, either during morning meeting at the beginning of class, or through reading and role playing. And also it can be incorporated into math in terms of coming up with hypothetical math problems. Our children need the development of these skills are imperative for our children to effectively access the classroom learning. Children without these skills are left alone to identify and navigate their emotions and engage with peers without the necessary strategies and supports to appropriately communicate their needs and safely and joyfully engage with their peers. Funding to support social emotional development and communication, such as We Thinkers, Social Problem Solvers curriculum, which I have right here, will help our children develop these skills, which will provide the foundation for sound emotional and social health. And this curriculum is actually used by Hospital for Sick Children in their social communication courses. Likewise, funding for proactive social emotional programs will give teachers the tools and support needed to address student disruptions, student emotional concerns, and peer conflicts in the classroom. Implementation of these proposed programs have multiple goals, including improving children's emotional health and reducing peer conflicts, suspension, and expulsion rates. Other goals would include improving school safety and reducing instances that are unfortunately increasing in frequency in our schools. Instances where students or former students, devoid of self-esteem and healthy peer relationships and social emotional strategies, make the inappropriate choice to cause harm to students, teachers, and staff inside of schools. DCPS has the opportunity to be a leader and to stand up as a school system of change, committed to including increased commitment, funding, resources, training, oversight, and accountability to supporting our children and providing the tools needed in the area of social emotional development and communication to improve the safety and learning experience in the classroom. Lifelong skills that our children will use to become healthy, civil contributors in their families, to their community, and society. Thank you again for this opportunity.
Thank you very much. And next we have Maxwell Rabin, or Rabin, my apologies. All right, we'll keep moving, and Mr. Rabin, if you are here, we'll come back to you. Our next group is Elizabeth Stewart, Peter Boyce, Madeline Savili, and Christopher Stewart. So we'll start with Elizabeth Stewart.
Great. Thank you so much for having me. I was not prepared to be the first in my session, but it's nice to be here. I am here today as a DCPS parent and co-chair of the Alice Steele Middle School LSAT. I'm testifying today to highlight challenges with the existing DCPS budget model, especially for large schools. In particular, I'm advocating on behalf of all DCPS schools so that all, regardless of their size, can be provided with budgets that allow them to operate effectively, serving all of their students with year-to-year consistency. According to the most recent enrollment audit, Deal serves about 1,400 6th to 8th grade students, 16% of all DCPS students in those grades. The next largest school serving those students has about 500 students. So Deal is about 3 times the size of the next largest middle school. Additionally, Deal serves about 140 English language learners and 140 at-risk students, more than the total number of 6th to 8th graders at several other DCPS schools. Deal also serves many students from all over the district who travel from across town to attend it. Deal is also a 100% IB school, so each and every student at Deal receives an IB education, regardless of whether that student is a special ed or ELL learner. And just, I appreciated Abby's comments and want to note that Deal does not receive extra funding for this. It takes on this challenge, receiving the lowest general ed per pupil funding of any DCPS school. So there are 3 points I want to make. First, the new DCPS budget model imposes dramatic cuts on Deal's funding. These were masked in FY23 by nearly $2 million in one-time stability funds. Losing those is the equivalent of 16 teaching positions. Under that model, Deal's total budget would have fallen by over $1 million when accounting for inflation. We are very concerned about what will happen next year. Second, Deal and schools across the city are being forced to make do with less. When we compare budgets for FY20 to 23, Deal's general ed funding has fallen by over $600 per student when accounting for inflation. This leads to a reduction of about $800,000, even after accounting for the reduction in the number of students. This is at a time when, as we've heard, students are challenged with recouping learning loss and social emotional issues. Third, the budget model does not take into account the challenges of large schools. As you'll hear about from Jackson Reed, and where my daughter also attends, the economies of scale justification is a false narrative that disadvantages students from across the city. DCPS frequently allocates resources on a per school basis, not accounting for school size. There are simply not economies of scale that make up for the fact that large schools are complicated organizations that require substantial resources to operate efficiently and well. Ensuring adequate funding needs to also take into account specialized curricula, and we need to work together to make sure that all schools have the resources and attention that they need and deserve. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. And next we have Mr. Boyce.
Here, Elizabeth Stewart. Folks, I promise I won't be too long so that those who at the end of the program can get home for a decent or return to a decent dinner hour. DCPS, Chancellor, co-chairs, members, parents, guests, and fellow citizens, I extend my gratitude for this opportunity to provide comment on the DCPS FY24 budgetary process. I am Peter Boyce. First and foremost, proud parent of 2 Ivy League grads, both benefiting from education provided by DCPS. 2 present high schoolers, a senior at Jackson Reed and a sophomore at School Without Walls. I'm a Ward 3 resident, president of Community Affairs Consultants, and a current member of the LSAT at School Without Walls, and I concur with much of the testimony of the prior presenters, and I especially endorse the comments made by the members of the LSAT from School Without Walls, and definitely Alice Deal Middle School. 3 years ago, co-chairs, as a member of the LSAT at Alice Deal Middle School, I testified before a similar DCPS public budgetary hearing at Maury Elementary School. And along with another parent presenter, Gwendolyn Washington, we urged budget decision makers to allocate more funds towards social emotional learning. Today, I thank DCPS for moving in this direction to address the many social and mental health issues throughout our schools, especially in light of the COVID-19 pandemic. Therefore, I again urge decision makers to continue to increase funding for SEL, given the real stresses and pressures that impact society, humanity, our students, and our school system. Co-chairs, while I leave the issues of school size, class size, new schools, renovations, etc., to the technocrats, I strongly encourage full steam ahead to better performance at DCPS. In an attempt to better rate and grade schools from elementary to tertiary, Forbes magazine on July 31st, 2018, published an article written by Renee Morad titled "States with the best public school systems. And although that survey did not rank our DCPS very well, I believe it did our system valuable service if only we would heed the prerequisite to better school performance from one of the researchers cited in the article. Laura Shue, assistant professor at Merrimack College, she found that more than any factor, teacher quality seems to be the strongest predictor of student achievement. Recruiting.
Excuse me.
My 2 minutes up.
Thank
Oh my God. So thank you. And please do our best. Let's do our best. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Madeline Savilli.
Good evening, and thank you for the opportunity to testify. My name is Madeline Savilli, Division Manager of Programs at CASA for Children of DC. I was a public school teacher for a number of years, and in the classroom, I felt that I couldn't effectively support my most vulnerable students. At CASA DC, we support some of the most marginalized youth in the district. CASA DC recognizes the vast importance of education for DC's youth, particularly at-risk youth. We applaud the 2024 budget for allocating additional funds for DC's at-risk youth and urge individualized support to ensure the success of our most vulnerable youth. Recognizing the impact of childhood trauma on youth learning is critical. Childhood trauma impacts brain development, and youth who have experienced childhood trauma are paramountly impacted, particularly in learning. Children involved with Child Protective Services consistently perform lower in math and reading. Foster youth are at increased risk of dropping out of school and are less likely to graduate from high school or college. The achievement gap is readily apparent in DC's foster youth. In 2019, less than 27% of youth served by CFSA were approaching, meeting, or exceeding expectations in English, and less than 23% in math. CFSA involved youth from 2020 to 2021 had an average GPA of 1.9. Individualized support can help. For 20 years, CASA DC's volunteers have provided one-on-one mentorship and best interest advocacy for foster and juvenile justice involved youth. One of our primary areas of youth support is in education, engaging youth in learning activities, providing academic assistance, engaging with academic providers, and navigating academic barriers. With the support of a CASA volunteer, 88% of our youth in 2021 were approaching expectations in school or greater, compared to CFSA's 23%. Our youth with reported GPA achieved an average of 2.6 compared to CFSA's 1.9. And 85% of our youth have positive and hopeful feelings about their academic present and future. CASA DC seeks to better support DCPS in its efforts to improve education for at-risk students. There are strong opportunities for partnership utilizing our dedicated community-based volunteers. In the past year, we have provided numerous trainings for our staff and volunteers on topics including providing academic support, student voice, creating accountability plans, special education, and cognitive development. With increased funding for DC's at-risk youth, DCPS can take a decisive approach to ensure greater individualized support for DC's foster youth. While CASA DC is eager to provide partnership to facilitate greater support to youth, we additionally urge the following. Increase mental health support at each DCPS school with a high at-risk population, decreased adult to student ratio with additional classroom aides, and expanded tutoring services to address academic gaps. CASA DC is so grateful for the opportunity to support DC's at-risk youth. Thank you for your time and support.
Thank you very much. And next we'll hear from Christopher Stewart.
Yes, hello. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, good evening.
Yes, good evening. To the top. Good evening, DCPS FY24 budget hearings, November 16th. Good evening, DCPS family. When we ponder the trauma that our community has endured, I think it's only empathetically just for us to take a 10-second meditative moment, thinking about the thousands of DCPS-related lives that were lost in the last 2 years, and the emotional, psychological, and physical toll this pain has caused us. Now, as we continue to lift one another up and encourage one another, Let's just talk a little bit about the budget, or this ideal budget that I know that we can create together. The United States Congress Joint Economic Committee examined the monthly household inflation costs. The inflation costs reflect how much more the average US household must pay for the same goods and services it purchased in January 2021. The average inflation costs in the United States are slightly under $750. The average inflation cost in Washington, D.C. is slightly above $1,000. Educators don't make enough, regardless of whether or not DCPS educators make more than a large amount of other educators. We also pay more for housing and healthcare. A survey entitled the American Community Survey, ACS, by the Census Bureau reported a few years ago that the median income for white households is $125,000 roughly, compared to $47,000 roughly for African American households. Those figures have not changed significantly. As an anti-racist and anti-hatred school system, we have been fortunate enough to have school librarians who are trained researchers, historians, and archivists who can examine such troubling realities as to expose solutions and help develop equitable partnerships that would combat said data and systemically ill practices. While we're on the subject of school librarians, in FY23, after peaceful protesting and fighting to guarantee every school has a full-time certified librarian, Councilmember Janice Lewis George authored an amendment that passed and solidified $3.25 million to guarantee that every school has a certified full-time librarian. I do have to give kudos to DCPS and Chancellor Farabee, thank you. This investment was not a heavy lift for a school system that received in total over $300 million in COVID-19 recovery funds. To date, a very small amount of these elementary and secondary school emergency relief ESSER funds have been spent. We are curious as to what the plan is to spend equitably and judiciously. Indefinitely personnel. All schools should have at least one librarian, which is not non-petitionable. Budgeting recommendations. Schools with more than 600 students should budget a library tech aide to support the school library program. Schools with more than 1,000 students should allocate a second school librarian position to support the school library program. I have more there, I'll let you all read, and that's per DCPS's FY23 budget development guide. Funding. Create a program and hire peace and love ambassadors. These ambassadors would replace SPOs and traditional security officers. These ambassadors would receive mediation, anti-hatred, and restorative justice training. Ambassadors would reside in every school, but also central office, because we all need that care. Additional funding for music programs and art programs, including dance throughout DCPS. Every primary and secondary school should have a robust arts program that includes each of these programs. In conjunction with DC Housing Authority, DC Public Library, create tutoring and homework help opportunities in each ward and neighborhood. With 26 public libraries, there is incredible opportunity for each student, parent, and community member to have homework, resume, and employment application assistance with a collaborative partner. DCH, DCPS, DCPL. Really quickly, our students are carefully watching and often quietly, but they are observing our actions. We have a responsibility to work together. Chancellor Farabee and WTU educators have lost homes, part-time jobs, and for some, their confidence in their abilities. This month must be the month that egos are put to rest and politics become a distant memory. This month must be the month that a new contract that propels educators into an incredible future is signed, sealed, and delivers. My colleagues are beautiful, intelligent, and compassionate. My colleagues are not only the ones that are ET15, but they are the part of the wider DCPS family, including each person at central office, from instructional superintendents, division chiefs, directors, brilliant custodians, administrative assistants. Our students are watching, and what example do we want to give them? Absolute peace, love, and light. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And our next group will be Angela Anderson, Nyria Jones Cooper, Ambrose Lane Jr., Martin Wells, and we will start with Miss Anderson.
Hello, can you hear me okay?
Yes, thank you. Good evening.
Wonderful. Good evening. Good evening, Chancellor Farabee and the Council. My name is Angela Anderson, and I am a Ward 4 resident, a parent of 4, in which my daughter, my youngest, attends Whittier Elementary School, which is our neighborhood school in Ward 4. And I'm also proud to say that I am the current PTO president of that amazing school. So I'm here to provide my testimony on the gross negligence that is happening at Whittier and continues to happen at Whittier. This is my 5th year at the school. There have been ongoing and ignored issues the entire time that I've been a parent at this school. This is actually the reason why I stepped into the role of PTO president, because someone needs to advocate for all of our working parents at our school. Someone needs to highlight the gross neglect that our families continue to endure over the years. Is it because we have working parents who don't have as much free time as other schools across the city? Is it because of our demographics and we're a school of mostly minorities? You know, last year, I wrote a letter on behalf of the issues that were going on in the school. And even though that letter was addressed, it wasn't addressed because the subpar contractors continue to put the Band-Aid solutions on our issues, which is, of course, you've heard it already, our leaky roof. You're aware that prior to the pandemic, that there was a leaky roof issue and that the issue was repaired, but the roof is still leaking. And that year, prior to the pandemic, there were 3 classroom relocations, teachers who fell ill to the poor air quality because of the water that rained into the classrooms. Do you think that that type of environment is one that is conducive to learning? Do you think teacher absences due to poor air quality and these Band-Aid solutions should continue? There have been 3 roofing repairs since I've been there, and yet the roof still leaks. I'll stop about the roof. As we know, Whittier is a nearly 100-year-old building. The negligence forces us to continue to suffer. You've heard about the leaky roof, but there's also HVAC issues. There's non-working water fountain. There are sewage backups in the classrooms and in the bathrooms. There are non-working toilets on an entire level in our building. And let's not talk about the falling bricks that are on our ECE wing and all of the sustained water damage that we continue to deal with. You heard Madison, one of our students, give testimony about the radiator that burst, how she felt, the hot steam that spilled out, the fact that there were hours of disruption for the classroom instruction and the teachers could not do what they needed to do to help fulfill the need and demand of educating our students. Again, my presence today is to urge you to pay attention. And for DCPS, DGS, the facilities, whoever is in charge of insurance, that we get qualified contractors to stop the negligence. We've been having these piecemeal solutions and they are not resolving any of our issues. What it is costing taxpayers millions of dollars. My ask, my urge, my request is for Whittier to be modernized beginning fall of 2023, because the current schedule just doesn't address the fact that we have students, teachers, and families that are put at risk every day. Have anyone ever considered the fact that we should not follow a list and instead consider the safety need? As a parent, code violations need to be addressed. I would just like to say my last part, if it's okay, it's just disheartening to know that when we look across the street, we see the new Ida B. Wells and all of the money that's been put into Coolidge, and we see that we have all of these ongoing physical issues. So thank you very much for allowing me to testify today. And I hope that Whittier can be moved up, because it's definitely wasteful to continue pouring money into our school. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Anderson. Next, Ms. Jones-Cooper.
Can you hear me okay?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, thank you so much. Good evening, everyone. My name is Naria Jones-Cooper, and I am the LSAT Communications Coordinator and parent of a junior scholar at Phelps Architecture, Construction, and Engineering High School. First, let me start by saying thank you for giving me the time to speak today. This is my 3rd time speaking at the annual budget hearing, and I have to be honest and say that it's a bit discerning that after 3 hearings, 3 years, we're still asking for the same things. We are seeing mice running through the halls during the daytime. We have classroom doors and bathrooms that we have been waiting for over 4 years now to be repaired. all while we watch DCPS continue to construct new facilities and other athletic fields. We are still dealing with a shared subpar athletic field since DCPS took our athletic field to construct a new school. There have been quite a few fights on campus, as one of our students has mentioned, and a lot of these are occurring in the rooms that do not have proper working doors. So how long does it take to fix a door? How long does it take to provide quality athletic fields? How long does it take to provide safety for our scholars? In my first speech 3 years ago, I talked extensively about my son who was diagnosed with autism when he was 3, and our choice to choose DC as our forever home. Over the years, with heavy interventions, he is at a place where he still needs support, but he can and has been successful academically. Phelps has had more scholars on the spectrum into the school in the last 3 years, and yet the school has not been provided with any resources to support scholars on the autism spectrum. Autism is a unique disability, and the word spectrum means something. These neurodivergent scholars have the ability to see things through a beautiful lens that should be celebrated, accepted, and nurtured. Elon Musk, Temple Grandin, Anthony Ayana are examples of people on the autism spectrum that have gone on to do great things with proper support. I don't think DCPS is doing enough for this unique demographic to be supported, especially at Phelps High School. Yes, we are an application school, but we are also a school where we have scholars with disabilities that need proper support. In closing, as the board considers its budget, we ask that you take time and properly research autism spectrum disorder and provide the supports to not just your comprehensive high schools, but also your application high schools for scholars on the spectrum. And please, please, please fix our doors in the building. Please fix the doors. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Ambrose Lane Jr.
Good evening. My name is Ambrose Lane Jr. I'm chair of the Health Alliance Network, DC's largest community-based health advocacy organization. But I'm here tonight as a Ward 7 resident, parent of a 3rd grader at Ambiers Elementary School, an active member of the PTO, and former officer in the Ward 7 Education Council. I'm here to advocate for the creation of a STEAM Academy for Entrepreneurship for grades 6 through 12 at Winston, formerly Winston Elementary School. Last year, the mayor's capital improvement plan put in the budget money to demolish Winston and create a community-oriented citywide facility for project-based and career-oriented learning. This plan did not go through as of last year. And in part, I believe, because it wasn't supported by the community. It wasn't supported by the PTOs at Ambiers. It wasn't supported by the PTO at Randall Highlands Elementary School. It wasn't supported by the Hillcrest Community Civic Association. And it wasn't supported by the Ward 7 Education Council. Why do we need, and what can a Winston STEAM Academy for Entrepreneurship do? Well, it can provide a guaranteed high quality neighborhood secondary option. It can provide a 6 to 12 education campus that has a STEAM curriculum that supports an entrepreneur mindset. It can provide strong world language options, and it can follow a whole school, whole community, whole child focus. It also can provide space for adult learning in math and reading literacy, given the fact that Ward 7 has the highest literacy rate in the city, and residents, 49% of the residents east of the river read at a 1st grade or lower reading level. Why Winston? Well, the mayor just today unveiled the draft Racial Equity Action Plan. Winston can create an opportunity to address stark systemic inequities from those students living east of the Anacostia River and those living west of Rock Creek Park, and the gradations of inequity that exist in between that have been exemplified by the testimony here tonight. It can also reverse the current inequitable practices of DCPS that currently require students to leave Ward 7 and travel west for greater educational opportunities, like AP and IB programs for early college access, dual language, and STEAM, and address facility concerns as currently in practice with the overcrowding of Deal, Jackson Reed, formerly Wilson, and the newly approved MacArthur Campus High School. It can also establish a school with a socioeconomic diversity, strong parental and community support, and quality educational programming by developing a feeder pattern from the fully enrolled elementary schools of Ann Beers and Randall Highlands, coming from the economically diverse communities of Hillcrest, Naylor Gardens, Fairfax Village, Randall Highlands, DuPont Park, and Penn Branch. It can also enhance plans that are underway in major development that is in process and growing in the surrounding communities like the Crest at Skyline Town Center and the residences at Penn Branch Shopping Center. It can also increase the DCPS student capture rates for East of the River schools. And lastly, we are open to and willing to collaborate and work with Chancellor Farabee and his staff. And what we are requesting is the creation of a planning committee from DCPS to work with parents from Ann Beers and Randall Highlands, with parents and community residents from Hillcrest Civic Association and the Ward 7 Education Council to jointly create a plan for the use of Winston Elementary School. Thank you very much, and we challenge, and I will put my information in the chat for Chancellor Farabee, but we challenge and we want to know that the Chancellor is willing to work with us as a community to be able to get some of these things done. Thank you.
Thank you. And now we'll hear from Martin Wells.
Okay, sorry for the light. I'm in a closet here. We've got award ceremonies going on tonight, but my name is Marty Wells. I have 3 children at Jackson Reed High School. My children participate in a total of 7 different sports. Some of these sports are funded by DCPS, DCIAA, and some are not. However, all these teams are required to comply with the regulations of DCIAA, including coaches' pay, attendance, grades, athletic trainers at events. And all these costs are shifted to the parents, and the parents have to come up with the money so that a season can take place. The estimated cost for an unfunded sport is somewhere between $10,000 and $15,000 per season. None of this money comes through the budgetary process. Like a head coach is required by DCIAA, that's $3,000. An assistant coach is $1,000. Athletic trainers at $175 an hour require 8 home games, that's $2,800. Referees are $2,400. Uniforms are $2,000 annualized. Bus transportation is about $4,000. All these expenses are incurred at the parents' expense. So what DCPS can do is place $250,000 in a grant program administered by DCIAA. And then these unfunded high school sports can apply for those grants based on their budgetary needs. If DCIAA doesn't want to do it, I serve on the board of Capital Community Partners, and we'd be happy to put in a proposal for that grant. This is about equity and inclusion. There's many sports that are non-traditional outside football, basketball, that students could participate in and get a college scholarship. For example, women's field hockey in college or boys lacrosse. And, I want to thank you for your time. I look forward to partnering with you in the future. I've already talked to the mayor about this. I've talked to city council members. It's time to fund the unfunded high school sports in DC public schools. Thank you.
Thank you. And next we have a upcoming group beginning with Dennis Beith, Andrew Beith, Sean Ruffing, and Nora Green. And we'll start with Mr. Dennis Beith.
Thank you, Chancellor, and everyone for allowing me to testify. My name is Dennis Beast. I'm a student at Hardy Middle School. In school, I haven't been able to choose any any of my elective any elective classes of my choice. Because of this, we don't have many classes to choose from other than the classes that have been given for us. My science teacher, Miss Davis, left because of the difficulty trying to get to Hardy, so having her leave impacted the class without a teacher. We haven't done any schoolwork for 3 weeks straight, so without a teacher, we haven't been able to function as a class properly. As a result, we did not have the rules enforced properly. That led to fight that broke out in class. I've noticed at school that the classes have gotten a lot bigger and longer than the classes from last year. The 90-minute classes are the three classes that we have, such as each day, the three classes we have each day, it's a lot longer than last year. We haven't had multiple classes that of our choice. Many of us a few of us, like, for example, wanted a class such as PE or band. We haven't been able to do that because of the three classes that have been given to us. With these larger classes, it has been a lot harder to maintain order in class. I've noticed a lot of roughhousing because of this. I do not feel as safe as I should be in school. Many people have been fighting without a lot of talk. They haven't been punished for what happened. A lot of poor behavior, such as foul language, has been seen anywhere in school. No matter where you go, there will be someone that curses. I want to thank you all again for listening. Have a great evening.
Thank you very much. And now we'll hear from Andrew Beef.
Yes, thank you. So I'm the proud father of Dennis, and also have two other children in DCPS, an elementary and early learning center. I've never testified before. My son has never testified before, quite frankly, because we've never had a situation that is as concerning as what we've experienced this year at Hardy. Dennis joined Hardy last year at 6th grade. He had a very positive experience and took band, had great teachers. And, notwithstanding the usual middle school issues, many of his classmates seemed to be well behaved. The teachers were motivated. And I was as impressed with Hardy as I have been with any DCPS school or any other school that I've been exposed to. Having followed Hardy over the years and, obviously making the decision to enroll there, I was, Hardy is such a success story, has been such a success story. And I was so proud, to be able to continue that. But this year has just, it's been a real break. I noticed during the parent-teacher conferences, compared to last year, that the teachers' morale had fallen quite precipitously. Only a week after I had the parent-teacher conference, Dennis's science teacher quit for reasons including, that she just could not make ends meet, having to pay the transport costs to come into the city. As Dennis testified to, that has been incredibly disruptive. He's been reporting to me about the problems, behavior that are stemming from the, frankly, huge classes that he's in. This is all a product of the new budget model. It's a product of Hardy being a victim of its own success and having staffing positions cut. Hardy is such a success story for the school, as Ms. Paulson ably detailed earlier. And I would hate for the future of DCPS for that success to be reversed. I have a very hard decision to make, and I have we have a fifth grade child who will be, looking obviously to go on to middle school next year. And at the moment, I don't know that I can send her to Hardy in good conscience, knowing what is going on this year. So I implore the chancellor all of you in decision-making power to look at this, look at how you can resource Hardy appropriately so that the school does not suffer regression, so that it becomes a place where people like myself and others throughout the city can, in good conscience, send our children there. Because at the moment, I cannot say that that's the case. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have Sean Ruffing.
Thank you so much, and good evening to each and every one of you, to the Chancellor of DCPS, Chancellor Fairby, to the Deputy Chancellor, and to each and every one of you under the sound of my voice. My name is Sean Ruffing, and I am a former DCPS graduate. And I also a former DCS employee, and I just came back, and I am working at Calvin Coolidge Senior High School, which is my alma mater. There were several things that confirmed my testimony today. One of them that I wish DCPS would have, I would suggest to DCPS is to create a alumni council, a DCPS alumni council for alumnus throughout who graduate through DCPS, especially through the high schools, to come and talk, and who are interested into be employees back home in their area schools, whether it be elementary, whether it be middle, or whether it be high school. So that is my request, is to create a DCPS alumni council. Another thing too, for the educational aides and paraprofessionals, we know that teacher shortage, I've been hearing that tonight, teacher shortage, and you have educational aides and paraprofessionals that can step into the plate and to fulfill the teacher role for our students. So I wish that if we have a cohort of educational aides and paraprofessionals who wouldn't mind stepping up to the plate and try to be trained to become certified teachers. That would be easy enough for DCPS to place the talent that we have into these schools that do not have enough teachers for instruction for our students. Because I was a substitute teacher, a long-term substitute teacher at another school district that needed help. And now, since I'm an educational aide, team players team makes the dream work. So I feel that if you have educational aides and paraprofessionals that are ready to step into that teacher mode and to create that core, to create the training for that endeavor. And lastly, AVID. I remember that there was AVID throughout DCPS. I don't know what happened to it, but if it's possible that somewhere down the line that AVID can come through the middle and high schools, especially through the high schools while they're applying to colleges, getting their essays done, scholarships, and that sort. And for the middle schools, AVID, where the middle schools get to know what the process is, preparing themselves through what the materials are for them to successfully become a scholar when they get to high school, so they can be prepared.
Thank you, Mr. Ruffing.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. And next, we will hear from Nora Green.
Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
Thank you. Thank you, DC Public Schools, for giving me the opportunity to share my thoughts and recommendations for budget fiscal year 2023-24. I'm Nora Green Lane, a parent of a student at Ann Beers Elementary, and these are my recommendations. First, happy early Thanksgiving. My son is a legacy. I attended. My grandmother was the crossing guard, and my aunts attended. So we're very proud of Ann Beers, and Ann Beers is a legacy school. in addition to my aunt being a special ed teacher. My concern, excuse me, is traffic safety to prevent accidents and fatalities. Ambears is along Alabama Avenue. There are several entity organizations and educational centers around Alabama Avenue, from Pennsylvania Avenue to Branch Avenue. We need to remedy this immediately. No one at heat limit, and it is very frightening to walk across Alabama Avenue, even with the crossing guard. Next, and I've heard this many times through other school representatives, building modernization and completion of projects. Did you know Ann Beers is 80 years old this year? So when Ann Beers was built, the US was going to World War II. And all the while at that time, the school was predominantly white. It's now majority Black. And it's old, it has the issue of an 80-year-old. Nothing has the same shelf life. And so originally, about a decade ago, some form of modernization took place. The work was shoddy. I understand the folks with Whittier. We sympathize with you because the work was shoddy. And we continue to have issues around that shoddy work. Please stay abreast of those contractors that are working in the schools. Back in 2019, there was a fire in our cafeteria after this shoddy work. One half of the building learned that the fire was going on, the other half did not know. And so I'm not certain whether or not that fire issue has been addressed. I'm concerned that with an 80-year-old building, we need to be sure that the school is ready for our 21st century scholars. Health and safety, I will say that our building and maintenance staff and personnel really carried our school during this pandemic. And they had to be sure that our schools were ready for a safe return for our parents, for our teachers and our students. And HVAC, the HVAC system, of course, is a situation that we had to deal with. It continues to be, and I hope that you guys continue to provide updates citywide about those HVAC systems as well as water filtration systems. They did replace some things at Ann Beers, but that is ongoing. And we know that as the season progresses, more of our students are getting sick again. It's not necessarily COVID, but the other viruses. And so we need to ensure that the cleaning and the maintenance continues on as is needed. I would also say that food security, am I over?
You are. If
Okay.
you could just
Just
take
the
one more
food
minute to
security
finish.
issues, we have the food print program, and that needs to be fully funded. I did submit my testimony. Please make sure that our teachers all have Narcan available to them because we do have an opioid crisis and students are getting access to opioids.
Thank
Thank
you.
you very much. Happy Thanksgiving.
You as well. Thank you. Our next group will be Alice McNeil, Karen Cowden, Valerie Boykin-Pear, and Stephen Kletter. And we will start with Alice McNeil.
Good evening. Thank you for the opportunity to testify regarding the DCPS fiscal year 24 budget. I appreciate this hearing being held outside of our contract hours so that educators are fully able to participate. I'm Alice McNeil, a reading specialist at Garfield Elementary School in Ward 8. There are many things I strongly believe should be funded, such as increased budgets for wraparound mental health services for students as well as staff, money to support flexible scheduling, and of course, a strong contract for the WTU. However, my testimony this evening will be focused on a more straightforward line item, allocating more of the budget to purchase decodable text to better support our new and struggling readers. The district has clearly stated that using evidence-based instruction is a priority. I'm a proud alumnus of the DC Reading Clinic, one of the best professional development opportunities available within our district. Being trained with the DC Reading Clinic is the first step to supporting educators and students in the switch to structured literacy, literacy aligned to brain science. The next step is continuing to support educators with adequate and appropriate resources, decodable text. This school year, each school should have received 40 titles of somewhat decodable text, written specifically for DCPS students in first grade. This is a great start for students to have some of their experiences mirrored in the curriculum. However, 40 titles is far from enough. As we have seen from the latest test scores, the vast majority of DCPS students need instruction in foundational literacy skills. 40 titles just isn't enough, and we don't have to wait for DCPS to create more titles. There are a plethora of resources already available for purchase at a wide variety of price points. The DC Reading Clinic already compiled a list of suggested titles, and some are available to download on the Science of Reading Educator Canvas page. Educators who are able to find these resources are able to put together books made from their own printer paper. However, I urge you to simplify this process and purchase actual bound books from a professional publishing company. These bound books will last longer and be able to support more students over time. I've enclosed a link in my testimony from the Reading League, a nonprofit organization created to advance awareness, understanding, and use of evidence-based instruction with recommended texts for readers of all ages. DCPS leadership has stated that effective literacy instruction is a priority. However, without the funding for appropriate and research-based resources, we cannot align actual classroom practice with this stated goal. It's an issue of equity. Students need to be able to practice decoding skills in real books. Schools need enough books for a full scope and sequence of instruction, and for students to be able to take these books home. We know that what is best. Decades of research has shown that decodable texts best support children's literacy development. Now we need the money to purchase them. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Next, we'll hear from Karen Cowden.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Thank you for this opportunity to testify this evening. I'm Karen Cowden, proud parent of 2 DCPS graduates and the school librarian at Kimbo Elementary School located in Ward 7. It is home of 400 amazing and truly brilliant Kimbo scholars. I stand up today for equitable access to school libraries and librarians because I believe that every child, no matter their zip code, deserves a state-of-the-art school library filled with current print and non-print books, electronic resources, working technology, and so much more. This is a fight we have been fighting for far too long in DCPS. And so I ask you today, will you be bold and do your part? I know we want to believe differently, but the inequity in our school system is real, and I fear the positive momentum and investments of millions of dollars in DCPS school library programs will slide backwards again. You see, prior to the passing of legislation last year by the City Council known as the Right to Read Act, all schools and all DCPS scholars did not have access to a school library with a full-time certified librarian. And while DCPS's history with respect to school libraries has shown greater promise in recent years, it has been thanks to our City Council's leadership stepping in and the citizens demanding action that we were able last year to get the right to read amendment passed to ensure fully staffed school libraries. We are now at a crossroads. Will you be bold and do your part? 8 years ago, amidst the battles facing DCPS school libraries, I transferred from a school in Northwest DC to Kimbo, known as one of the lowest 40 performing schools in Southeast. I saw a library collection very dated and a third the size. I saw opportunities for field trips, author visits, science and social studies resources, technology support, starkly missing. I saw few schools in Ward 7 and 8 with libraries or librarians at all. What I believed in my heart before the move and after the move and to this day remains the same. Children, no matter their zip code, no matter their color, their religion, their sexual orientation, or gender expression, are curious about our world. Yes, significant progress has been made, but let's not go backwards. All of our children deserve the very best in all respects, including a state-of-the-art school with well-resourced libraries and a certified school librarian. Be bold. Let DCPS be a leader for our nation to show that we value the right to read for all of our children, and democracy is at stake if we do not fight for and protect our libraries and make certain they are accessible to one and all. Let us not miss this opportunity to stand up, to keep the momentum moving forward, take action, and do what is right. Thank you so much for this opportunity. Have a wonderful Thanksgiving.
Thank you very much. And next we will hear from Valerie Boykin-Pear.
Good evening, Chancellor Farabee and DCPS community. My name is Valerie Boykin-Pear. I'm a native Washingtonian and graduate of DC Public Schools. I'm the current PTO president and LSAT member at McKinley Technical Education Campus, member of the Principal Selection Committee for McKinley EC, and former member of the Chancellor's Advisory Board. Excuse me. I come to you today as the parent of a class of 22 Ellington graduate, current McKinley Tech 11th grade student, and current School Without Walls freshman. There are 3 concerns I'd like to highlight for your budget consideration. Excuse me. Principal division at McKinley Tech Education Campus, technology deficiencies across school communities, delayed service responses, creating a lack of equity in physical, mental health across school communities. As I mentioned, I participated in the Principal Selection Committee at Tech. The parents in that committee asked repeatedly of central office why these 2 schools had to share a principal. We were told the separation wasn't allocated in the 2022 budget. Please reconsider this stance as you plan for the 2023 budget. Principal Stafford is a wonderful addition to our school, and this request is no reflection of her. Our experience as an EC has shown us the deficiencies in this model. We continue to see a decline in enrollment at the middle school and in the quality of our STEM program at the high school. The goals for the 2 schools are not aligned enough for this role to be shared and meet and exceed the potential we see in these programs. DCPS technologies do not meet the needs of the school communities. I access 3 DCPS buildings and the networks in all 3 are lacking. Students must use personal devices to get a good signal. Fix it. Teachers are forced to do double entry in 2 systems that do not talk to each other. In Canvas, there's inconsistent implementation between teachers, and this causes confusion and angst amongst the students and the parents. When I think of the time spent by thousands of families that is wasted trying to discern what the information sent out to families, and it's inconsistent. For example, the cumulative GPA listed on my child's 4th term report card doesn't match what went home to me in her readiness report. It's imperative that families feel the tools are useful and accurate. Otherwise, how are we to trust what we receive from you? Technology is supposed to create ease of use and access, but we're not reaping that. Having options for high school students who determine their interest early on and supporting them is commendable. I want more transparency in the funding at our schools. The budgets aren't explained or aligned to allow reasonable review and understanding. Data isn't presented well and it's confusing. For example, in their 2023 submitted budget, McKinley Tech had 9 related arts positions, Walls 13, Ellington 2. This cannot be right. I would expect DCPS to fund more related arts teachers at Ellington than anywhere else. In the 2022 budget planning, your focus was equity and transparency at DCPS, shifted its budget model. Unfortunately, the presentation is lacking. Budgets aren't explained or aligned to allow reasonable review. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And next, we will hear from Mr. Stephen Kletter.
Yes, hi, good evening. My name is Stephen Kletter, and I'm a practicing economist who has lived and worked in the district for over 25 years. I have 2 children that attend Jackson Reed High School. Over the past few years, I've spent an enormous amount of my own time attempting to decipher the old and new DCPS school funding budget models. I've identified significant problems with both models, and I've shared my results with senior DCPS staff and the City Council. A serious problem with the old model was that it dramatically underfunded large schools, even after accounting for differences in student needs. For example, this flaw in the old model underfunded Alice Steele Middle School by over $2 million per year. To its credit, DCPS itself explicitly recognized this problem in its summer 2020 budget presentations. However, and for me this is really disappointing, When the new DCPS budget model was unveiled for FY23, this fundamental problem was left completely unaddressed. As a result, many students in our city will continue to receive inadequate general education funding simply because they attend a large school. It's long past due for DCPS to fix this mistake. Remarkably, the new DCPS budget model is even worse than its predecessor from my point of view. The new model cuts baseline general education funding for many elementary schools across the city and a few middle schools such as Alice Deal and Hardy. The funding cuts per student are by far the largest in the Jackson Reed feeder system. Many LSATs may be unaware the new model has cut their baseline funding. That's because DCPS has supplemented their total FY23 funding amounts with what DCPS refers to as one-time stability funds. If your school received one-time stability funds for FY23, this means, and this is important, that the new DCPS budget model has determined that your school's baseline funding should be cut dramatically. To calculate your school's new baseline funding under the new budget model, simply subtract your school's total funding amount by the amount of the one-time funds you received. For example, doing this simple math for Alice Deal reveals that its baseline funding will be cut by $750,000 relative to FY22. And when you properly account for the lost purchasing power due to inflation, the true drop in Alice Deal's baseline funding is over $1 million. The pain, however, will not be felt until FY24 when the one-time funds disappear. Alice Deal received $1.8 million in one-time funds. So next year it faces a fiscal cliff that could result in the elimination of a whopping 16 full-time teaching positions. Similarly, the elementary and middle schools that feed the Jackson Reed High School collectively will lose $8.8 million in annual one-time funding, but one-time stability funds when they're eliminated in FY24. This fiscal cliff represents a whopping 10% funding cut for the feeder system and will necessitate the elimination of nearly 80 full-time positions. This is simply unacceptable and must be fixed. I've attached a presentation that outlines this funding problem in detail. I do thank you all for I know you all work very hard on this stuff, and it's complicated and not easy. And I do thank you for everything that you're trying to accomplish. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next, we will hear from Donica Petrosius, Tommy Jones, Timothy Abdallah, and Alicia Dorsey. And we'll begin with Ms. Petrosius.
Hi, thank you, Mr. Chancellor and Deputy Mastera. Our school's Capitol Hill Montessori at Logan has had challenge after challenge facing us. We had lead in the water, crumbling buildings, lack of technology, sewage in the cafeteria, sexual misconduct. It's been over and over. Nothing that our parents or teachers or anybody has inflicted upon us. It has been the system inflicting it upon us. Tonight, we got a double whammy. You have my full testimony. I am not going to give it all because I want to give my son time to tell you the bad news he heard from you all today in his own words. But first, I want to briefly state the overview of my testimony is that your budget model is $1 million short, much like Mr. Keller was saying, for CHML right now. DCPS consistently, purposely ignores our school's recommendations on enrollment and under-enrolls us so that we are purposely short. Just like this year, you made us do 396. We told you it was going to be higher, and we're at 423. And so there's a bunch of students underfunded. And then you don't fund our middle school over and over. We have each individual specials teacher teaches 11 grades. We have one science teacher for 11 grades. We have for all three middle school, which is very different grade content and specific content, we have one math teacher and one ELA teacher. So I ask you to right size our budget this year. Secondly, I ask you to fully fund our middle school next year and to accurately do enrollment and budget next year. And now I leave it to my son. Go ahead, Maxie.
Hi, Mr. Chandler. My name is Max Woodsell and I'm 7th grade from CHML. My school and friends are really important to me, and so are sports. I found out today that my basketball practice that DCPS will not allow my school to have a basketball team that can compete in games this year. I am so upset and disappointed. We have around 13 boys and 12 girls who have been practicing 3 times a week, and are excited to play. We have great coaches. I don't understand why you can't let us play. Is it because we're a small school? Is it because we did something wrong? Why? We're having so much fun and we want to try and compete. You're cutting off our interests, hope, and dreams, and our school's diversity and clubs. Why won't you let us play? Now, please change your mind. Let CHML boys and girls compete in basketball. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next, we will hear from Tommy Jones.
Good evening, Chancellor Farabee, Deputy Chancellor Maestra. I'm Tommy Jones. I am a proud DCPS parent. My wife and I are proud DC residents, reside in Ward 7 in Hillcrest. And today I'm coming as the LSAT chair for Capitol Hill Montessori at Logan. I don't want to reiterate all the points that Danica has mentioned. We also have Tim who will be presenting as well, but I just wanted to touch on 3 particular points that I hope that as the DC Public Schools leadership looks to budgets and making sure that kids and families have the right tools that they need, that you look at these 3 issues that we have. One is maintain our enrollment numbers of over 400 students and properly fund our school with the needed resources as an education campus that reflects both the elementary and middle school students that we serve. For the past few years, we have seen that DCPS has projected our school enrollment numbers under 400 students. This projection has been wrong, caused challenges for our school community, and was an unrealistic number of students served based on the enrollment projections. Furthermore, the under-enrollment has hampered our base funding, decreased the number of teachers we can hire, and has made it even more challenging for our young people to have the kind of school experience that we all believe they deserve. You will notice that, for example, our school FY23 enrollment was projected at 396 students, and to date we have 423 students. Second, I'd like for you all to consider to right-size our school budget. I think Mr. Trosh's mentioned some of that, and I know that Tim, the next speaker, will mention that. But based on, Chancellor, based upon the projections and the information we received actually from the DCPS Budget Office and from our preliminary research, and we asked that if we're wrong, please help us as an LSAT. We're projecting that based on the information, we're $1 million short. So we'd really like to make sure that we can do the things necessary for both the school kids that we serve. And then finally, I ask that as you make these difficult decisions, that the budget process be both open and transparent. For us, we're parents. We're advocating for our kids because we love our kids. And I know you guys do too. You're working very hard to make difficult decisions. And we're asking you to help us be a part of the solution to making sure that every kid that goes to a DC public school, I'm proud to say we're over 50,000 students that are enrolled in DCPS because we're doing some things right. We need the support to do that as parents. We'll provide additional comments, Deputy Chancellor, via writing, and thank you for the opportunity to testify today.
Thank you very much. And next we'll hear from Timothy Abdallah.
Hello, thank you. Thank you for your time this evening. My name is Tim Abdallah. Timothy is my formal name, but I'm a parent of 2 Capitol Hill Montessori DCPS students. Gabriella Abdallah, age 13, she's in the 8th grade, and Lauren Abdallah, age 10, she's in the 5th grade. Both girls started at Capitol Hill Montessori, and Gabriella was born in September, so she started at 2 years old. They have been at the school their entire lives, and we have been fighting for them the entire time. We're exhausted of the fight for basic, safe education of our children. Yet, here we are again. We live across the street from the school in Ward 6 for the last 22 years. My wife, Betsy, and I participate in the PTSO. We chair committees. We are room parents, LSAT members, SIT members, PIT members, advocates, cheerleaders, soccer moms, and when needed, activists. So this is not our first rodeo. We've heard from some of my fellow parents and from many people testifying today, unbelievable number, that we are grossly underfunded. And Capitol Hill Montessori has been underfunded for many years, and this must be corrected. As part of my testimony, I submitted the Capitol Hill Montessori 2023 budget as evidence. It is publicly available on the DCPS website. Using the numbers in this budget document, I will walk us through a simple math problem that all schools should conduct. This math will provide all of us with a year-over-year per student funding value. And in the case of Capitol Hill Montessori, it'll show $1 million shortfall. The only other number needed that is not included in the budget document is our FY23 certified enrollment count. The Capitol Hill Montessori 2023 official enrollment count is 423 students. So let's do some math. The total fiscal year 22 budget was $5.6 million. The FY22 enrollment, projected enrollment was 355 students. Take the total budget, divide it by the total enrollment, and you end up with a per student funding amount of $15,747. If we do the exact same formula for fiscal year 23, with our $5.6 million budget, our official enrollment of 423 students, take the budget divided by the students, and we end up with an enrollment, a per student average of $13,380. $13,380 is significantly less than $15,747. That's $2,367 per student to be exact. That's just year-to-year math. If Capitol Hill Montessori was funded at the same level per student this year as they were last year, which I argue is still underfunded and doesn't account for inflation, the Capitol Hill Montessori budget should be $6,661,256.
Thank you, Mr. Abdullah.
This must be corrected.
Thank you. And next we have Ms. Alicia Dorsey.
Hello, good evening. All the top performing DC public schools are in Northwest, except for McKinley Tech, which is in Northeast. This is a gross display of inequity in our education system. It is magnified by the fact that 43% of all pre-K through 12th grade students live east of the Anacostia River in Ward 7 and Ward 8. However, despite housing the highest percentage of students, Ward 7 and Ward 8 have the lowest percentage of performing schools. We are desperate for top performing school options. In fact, data published by the Deputy Mayor of Education shows that 20% of families living east of the Anacostia River elect to send their scholars to top performing schools in Northwest. Furthermore, school year 16 and 17 data showed that the number of Ward 7 and Ward 8 high schoolers leaving to attend top performing schools in Northwest was enough to fill Benjamin Banneker High School, as more than 500 high school students living east of the Anacostia River attended Jackson Reed, McKinley Tech, School Without Walls, and Benjamin Banneker combined. School performance is only one part of this nuanced problem. The lack of strong school feeder patterns is also a major source of stress and frustration for these families, whose kids are shuffled like playing cards between various wards and quadrants, scheming for schools that satisfy academic and logistical needs as many families try to navigate multiple children through the DCPS system. This inequity disrupts critical family time and routines needed to support academic achievement, as high school students east of the Anacostia River have the longest school commutes. Our kids also lose meaningful opportunities to build lasting neighborhood friendships and do not have the related benefit of social continuity that supports academic success and builds thriving communities. The impact on families notwithstanding, these dynamics strain the entire DCPS system. Schools in Northwest are bursting at the seams each year, strategizing ways to meet the needs of a continuously increasing student population. Meanwhile, schools in Southeast are facing challenges of budget cuts and school closures due to a continuously decreasing student population. Jackson Reed High School in Northwest was designed to hold 1,550 students, However, the student population was 2,300 in school year 21-22. DME data shows that 25% of the Ward 7 and Ward 8 high schoolers traveling to Northwest attended Jackson Reed during that same year. I propose creating a top-performing selective middle and high school in Ward 7 and Ward 8, modeled after our top-performing DCPS selective schools. These selective schools will benefit the entire system, relieving overcrowding in Northwest schools, increasing student capture rates for Ward 7 and Ward 8 schools, creating a pseudo feeder pattern for families living east of the river, and addressing current systemic educational inequities. This proposal is not contradictory to the Ann Bears, Randall Highlands, PTOs, and Hillcrest Civic Community Association proposals for the use of the Winston Educational, elementary school facility. They're not mutually exclusive. And I look forward to speaking with you all further about these issues. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. And our next group will be Ania Watkins, Suzanne Wells, Tiffany Brown, Amy Daniels, and Allison Stephen. And we'll begin with Ania Watkins.
Good evening. My name is Anaya Watkins. Can you all hear me okay? Perfect. I'm the Education and Community Manager for the musicianship. Our mission is simple: to change lives with music. We've been able to raise funding and win grants that has helped us serve over 1,000 students with free music programming throughout the district. It's our hope to continue to provide a safe place for students to learn and grow. While our goal is to increase music aptitude, we are also attempting to disrupt the school to prison pipeline. With the partnerships of DCPS and the Departments of Parks and Rec, we've been able to provide an abundance of programming and opportunities. We've even given out over $5,000 in scholarships. It's my understanding that the new budget model will enforce security costs on non-DCPS sponsored programming. History has shown that music and arts programs are typically cut from school budgets, so we want to fill in this gap. We have developed a beautiful partnership with DCPS to provide free programming, which addresses their need for more enrichment programming and gives parents options when aftercare is full. Every partnership has a give and take. DCPS provides space and security. We provide professionals, programming materials to run these programs. This model has been very successful. After-school programs should not bear this cost, as it will force us to have to charge schools and parents for programming. We are constantly getting more and more requests from DCPS music teachers for us to program at their school sites. And we want to continue to support DCPS after school. We just need your help to do so. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Ms. Watkins, and my apologies for mispronouncing your name. And next we'll hear from Suzanne Wells.
Thank you. My name is Suzanne Wells, and I'm the president of the Ward 6 Public Schools Parent Organization. I'm testifying this evening about the need to increase the salaries of DCPS educational aides, school-based technology, and librarians. Based on the information from the American Federation of State, County, and Municipal Employees, the pay scale for a new educational aide in 2021 was $16.62 an hour. The starting salary of educational aides is only 52 cents above the minimum wage in DC. After 10 years of service, the pay of an educational aide rises to only $21.16. According to DCPS's educational aide job description, these positions require the educational aide on a daily basis to work with students individually and in small groups, reinforce daily lessons, motivate learning, assess progress, and assist with classroom management. An educational aide is a partner with the classroom teacher in implementing the daily lesson plans and reinforces student learning. Educational aides seamlessly move into the teacher position when the classroom teacher is absent. All of these tasks are important to helping students perform at their grade level and to narrowing the achievement gap. I have been substituting for DCPS since 2016. When students returned to in-person instruction in 2021, I began substituting almost full-time because the need for substitutes was so great. During this time, I have substituted primarily as an educational aide because schools have had the most difficulty filling these positions The low salaries are the primary reason people are not attracted to the position. The educational aides I have worked with are professional and dedicated to the students. DCPS should raise their salaries in school year 2024 to be commensurate with their responsibilities. DCPS has made significant progress in recent years in achieving a 1-to-1 device-to-student ratio. Our organization fully supports the testimony of digital equity in DC education. We urge DCPS to fund a robust device refresh cycle, resolve issues with smartboard installations, provide school-level funding for asset management and IT support, and integrate digital literacy in the classroom curriculum. Finally, our organization fully supports funding a librarian at every school and providing funds to purchase books. Certified librarians and robust book collections support a love of reading, enhance student learning, and bring equity across schools. Thank you for the opportunity to testify this evening.
Thank you, Ms. Wells. And now we'll hear from Tiffany Brown.
Thank you. Good evening, and thank you for the opportunity to provide testimony tonight. My name is Tiffany Brown. I am a DCPS parent, teacher, and elected ANC commissioner serving the Hillcrest area in Ward 7. I'm also the former LSAT chair of Capitol Hill Montessori, so I have been in this fight a long time. I currently serve on 3 LSATs to all of the schools I'm connected with. Although this is the beginning of the budget process, I am unclear of what the budget process will be. This year, I would like DCPS to provide a transparent budget process that everyone is able to understand how and what is funded. Briefly, some things I would like to see in the budget are job-embedded training for all staff. The job-embedded training must meet the needs of the teachers because LEAP is not doing it. We also need updated technology like smart boards and updated computers for staff and students. I would also like to see equity in all schools and all wards. My children attend schools in Ward 1 and 7, and I teach in Ward 6. The learning experiences are different in all 3 wards. I hear the chancellor talk about high impact tutoring, but what exactly is that? To close the achievement gap between Black and Brown students with their white peers, we need high impact teaching, not tutoring. To truly address this, we need a research-based reading curriculum on the elementary school level. There is a move within DCPS to train teachers in the science of reading, but this is not system-wide, which is needed. This is a system-wide failure of equity for students. Equity is also needed with staff. At my former school, there was an incident of harassment and bullying amongst staff in which I was a victim of. To date, DCPS has not provided training or any restorative practices at that school. I believe if this incident happened at another school in another ward, it would have been addressed swiftly. DCPS cannot say it's an anti-racist school system, but students and teachers of color do not see it. We do not feel the love, but rather feel unprepared to deal with the challenges we face. Lastly, I would like the mayor/DCPS to do whatever it takes to provide teachers with a fair, equitable contract with the Washington Teachers Union. Now is the time. You cannot continue to say you put students first by putting teachers last. Thank you for your time. I believe everyone knows how to contact me if needed. Have a good evening.
Thank you, Ms. Brown. And now we'll hear from Amy Daniels.
Can you hear me?
Yes, good evening.
Good evening. My name is Amy Daniels, and I'm really thankful to be here tonight. And I'm especially thankful for each and every one of you, Chancellor, Deputy Chancellor, and all of the folks giving testimony tonight. I'm truly grateful. I'm a parent of 2 children at Morey Elementary School, and I'm also on the local school advisory team. I'm a Ward 7 resident and a 13-year DC resident and an unyielding advocate for public school. I'm well aware that the resources available here in our city far outstrip any other in the nation. With the mayor's FY23 budget of $19.5 billion with a B, billion dollars for our roughly 705,000 DC residents, resources are not the problem. Compare our $19.5 billion budget for less than 1 million people with a $16 billion budget for more than 3 times that in Chicago as one reference point. Resources are not the problem. In this context, school budgets need not, indeed should never be, a zero-sum game. I'm not here to argue to give my school more resources and take anything away from any other school. We've had some really compelling testimony this evening. We need you to fight for DCPS students and represent the budget concerns that you're hearing tonight in the broader city leadership context. Tell us how we can help you, but together we must ensure that our school budgets are a top priority in this city, awash in resources. No one here tonight would disagree that our students are the future of this city. I stand with so many parents, students, DCPS staff to implore you to prioritize education in the city budget. We don't lack for resources here in Washington, D.C. It's a question of allocation. We ask that you ensure funding decisions align with services and resources that the students need. The specific concern that I bring to the table here tonight is that the funding formula failed to serve Maury Elementary equitably. And I echo what we've heard in earlier testimony. This school year, we are worse off for it in many ways, and you'll hear more about that from the subsequent testimony. Maury's per pupil funding was the lowest of 72 elementary schools in DCPS at less than $11,000 per student. It was nearly $1,000 per pupil less than the next lowest school. That's a lot. That's a big difference. I appreciate the diversity of school contexts, populations, needs, school-specific missions. However, even after creating a statistically valid subset of 10 peer school comparators, most similar to Maury in dimensions of at-risk population, English language learners, special education, and overall school population and enrollment growth trends, the results from the funding formula are utterly inexplicable for Maury, despite that we're comparing apples to apples. Maury is strongly enrolled. It grew by about 30 students, more than a full classroom, yet no new teachers. The model seemed to penalize Maury with a 3% per pupil funding reduction in the context of nearly 8% inflation year on year. No other school saw per pupil.
Thank you. If you could share your full testimony with us, we will make sure to review it.
Yes, I've done that. Thank you. I just implore that you please take a look at the funding formula.
Thank you. And next we'll hear from Allison Stephen.
Hi, good evening. I'm going to build on what Amy Daniels just said about Maury Elementary. My name is Allison Stephen, and I'm a parent of 2 children at Maury Elementary. As a lot of parents noted and advocated last February, to no avail, Maury's per pupil funding for 22-23 is the lowest of all the elementary schools by a lot. I strongly request reconsideration of the funding formula that was used, and the detriments of the shortfall have been really very real and hurtful to our students. Maury's student body increased by 30 students this year. But despite touting a strong return to in-person learning and support for kids who fell behind during virtual learning, DCPS reduced funding for special education staff and funded no additional teachers or interventionists from Maury despite the growth in student population. Also, there were 4 classes of 3rd graders last year, and they were funneled into 3 oversized 4th grade classes because no funding was provided for the obviously needed additional 4th grade teacher. And once again, there was no additional front office support provided or funded for the overburdened single front office staffer despite the increased enrollment. Also, despite DCPS's position that COVID prevention and sanitizing are high priorities, there is not enough soap funded for, or disinfecting wipes or tissues. So the teachers asked parents to send them in. I'll note that our special staff have been especially ill-served by the budget shortfall. In 5 of our specials, a single teacher was serving 500 kids per week last year. And because no new specials teachers were funded to reduce this burden, the school switched to a rotation of 3 specials per term. And the 1.5 PE teachers were expected to cover 2 classes per week per requirement of 530 students. So that's over 1,000 student hours per week. Speaking of PE, the retracting wall that should divide the main multi-purpose room into a cafeteria and gym is broken and will not close. And while begging for this repair for 4 years, the PE teachers have conducted their classes in a room where a few hundred kids are having lunch, and there is no wall to keep balls in the gym during PE. So I really implore that this repair be funded and implemented with haste. Mari is also bursting at the seams, and I asked DCPS to look ahead at where students will be accommodated. Some of our hallway flex open spaces for student learning have been converted into offices, like for the school's therapists, who must provide confidential services in a hallway space that does not have 4 walls or a door. To conclude, I request that the budget formula be corrected to provide adequate funding for additional interventionists, a second full-time PE teacher, another 4th grade teacher, additional staffing in the main office, and adequate funding for baseline materials and supplies. Thank you.
Thank you. And our last group, we have Jocelyn Johnson, Andrew Holod, Antoine Holmes, Chris Bergfalk, Daniel Drissel, and Melody Molinoff. And we'll begin with Jocelyn Johnson.
Okay, I don't know how to get it off. It's not letting me start the video.
Okay, well, we can hear you, Ms. Johnson.
It's not letting me, okay. Anyway, my name is Jocelyn Johnson. I'm ANC Commissioner for 4B03. That includes Whittier, which is across the street from Coolidge, and Ida B. Wells. I submitted my testimony, but I'm going to just kind of paraphrase, and because in comparison to the stories that I have heard tonight and the emails and stories that I have read in the last month from parents and supporters of Whittier, I just wanted to kind of talk about the situation. I'm just floored to think that this conditions of some of the things I've heard tonight and read still exist. I am a graduate of the DC public schools. I graduated from Coolidge in 1972. 50 years ago, I went to Coolidge, and before that, Paul, as a junior high school. And back then we had schools that were cold and we wore coats all day. And we had situations where the stench would be throughout the building, no ramps. I guess back then they didn't even deal with ramps and stuff like that. But to think that in 2022, you don't have ramps going into the building, you have such disgusting situation in DC schools in Ward 4. It just boggles the mind. I thought that I would ask a question and maybe you all could talk about it or answer it before the hearing is over tonight, as to when exactly is the fall of 2023 for the modernization of Whittier. I figure either it's now, and that's the reason why when I heard DGS testify at a hearing that Mendelson had a couple of weeks ago, they acted like, oh, there's no problem. We've got Whittier scheduled for modernization in fall 2023. It must be now and not a year from now. So to think that it's okay to let the students and the staff and the faculty work and go to school and function in these kinds of conditions, with roof leaking and continuing the leaks going back to before the COVID pandemic, there's something wrong with the picture. So my testimony has it outlined, but I just wanted to add that I think that with so many DC officials that live in Ward 4, to include the mayor, I can't imagine how the system has allowed Whittier to stay in this condition so long. The mayor has a daughter. I don't believe that her daughter, when she's school age, she would allow her daughter to attend a school that is in the condition that Whittier is in. and maybe some of these other schools, but just Ward 4, since she lives in Ward 4, I cannot imagine it. So I wanted to just bring that up. And hopefully, Mr. Farabee, you have heard this, your expressions from your face. You haven't made too many expressions. So I don't know if anything you've heard tonight has shaken you as it's shaken me, but hopefully it will. And it has compelled you to know that something needs to be done. And it doesn't need to wait for another year from now to be done to affect the conditions that these students and faculty are subjected to at Whittier. Thank you,
Ms. Johnson.
You're welcome.
And next we will hear from Mr. Antoine Holmes.
All right. Good evening, Chancellor Farabee and the DCPS staff. My name is Antoine Holmes. I am the ANC Commissioner for 7C07 Deanwood, as well as the Chair of ANC 7C. But more importantly, I'm a proud DCPS parent for my daughter over at Houston Elementary School. As we go to a lot of community meetings to listen to what people have issues with about the school, a lot of these themes come up, and I wanted to bring this to y'all attention tonight. And one of them is a lack of a standard framework to be able to move a student from an autism self-contained classroom to a general education classroom. There's no full immersion classroom model being used with the co-teaching model. It's not being used at all at East of the River. What I'm hearing more of is there's a push-in model that's being used, and pull them in and take them back out to self-contained. In addition, I have special ed families telling me that they're not being educated about the different types of special education models that are out there, what CES versus SLS and all the other acronyms. In addition to those issues, I'm also hearing about there's a lack of a comprehensive technology plan to include, sustainable PC upgrades, equitable internet access, and best-in-class technical support. In addition, specifically for Houston Elementary, there is no equitable dual language middle school option located east of the river. For Houston, there's also, since Houston came, Stokes also came up, Global Citizens is trying to come along. So there's a lot of parents who have students doing dual language, but nowhere equitably to go after that. One of the things that was done during the Houston Elementary Modernization SIT team was asked to see if they could have upgraded to an education campus for 6 to 8 to support that initiative. And then, ultimately, people thinking it from pre-K 3 to PhD, people want to be able to think about what it is to go to do beyond just DCPS and not seeing any real equitable options for local like UDC, since that's located west of the river. As we think about, as the people talk about the National Capital Region, with all of the jobs from federal government, multinational corporations, Amazon, et cetera, we've talked about all these IT tech careers and STEM careers that are out there, but we don't have good IT infrastructure, or annual infrastructure and budget. We like to see that, the Deanwood community would like to see that be done from DCPS to address one-to-one student PC ratio. It's at 3 to 5th at Houston, but it's not through K through 2nd. And again, those devices, they pretty much stay on site. They never go out. So we lose opportunities to be able to do at-home digital assignments. So hopefully we can go ahead and try to come up with a bold plan to eliminate the homework gap here and to address the digital divide that's plagued a lot of the Title I schools that are in Ward 7 and in Ward 8. In terms of, sorry about that. In terms of talking about, the feeder pattern right now for Houston for dual language, it would have to go to McFarland and to Roosevelt, which are both located in Ward 4, as others have mentioned before. That type of hike has been well documented in newspaper and articles everywhere, that is a hardship on families. So we would like to see DCPS come up with a feeder pattern that will address dual language students to be able to attend schools east of the river and not put that burden of travel on families.
Thank you, Mr. Holmes.
And the one last thing is I just want to say, and I will send the rest of my testimony after this, but to say that we want to see something bold done to talk about, because of the pandemic, we haven't talked about other options like Saturday school or small group touring options or extended school year. So hopefully we can have those discussions as well to try to come up with a solution to help bridge this gap that our children are having. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And next we'll hear from Chris Bergfalk.
Hi, Good evening.
Good evening.
Thank you. I'm a DCPS veteran teacher of 20 years, a DCPS graduate, and a parent of 2 DCPS graduates and a current DCPS student. I'm testifying today as a concerned citizen on all those fronts because of the priorities of DCPS in the budget process. The data show that money and resources are being disproportionately allocated to the DCPS central office instead of the local school. As students and teachers know every day, education, teaching and learning, the real work of the school system happens in the classroom between teachers and students every day. I learned 20 years ago that if an administrator or central office employee doesn't come to work, there is no break in student learning. However, if a teacher doesn't come, no learning happens. The priority of any budget should be the local school and the individual classrooms. However, when compared to the other school systems in our country, that is not the case in DCPS. Instead, the data show that the central office is the priority in our city. The U.S. Census Bureau conducts an annual survey of school system finances. The Census Bureau has a table that shows how many per pupil dollars each of the 100 largest school systems in the country allocate to specific areas. Over the summer, I downloaded the most recent data they had, 2019, and I want to highlight some of those areas. Teacher salary. DCPS has the 3rd highest teacher salary behind New York City, which allocates more than $2,000 more per pupil for teacher salaries, and Boston, which allocates $1,700 more per pupil. For teacher benefits, DCPS ranked 35th behind New York City again, which allocates $5,313 more per pupil. And we rank below Montgomery County, our much higher performing immediate neighbor, which allocates $1,300 more per pupil. But when it comes to administration, the trend is reversed. For local school administration, DCPS ranked first, allocating $300 more per pupil than the 2nd ranked system, and $435 per pupil more than Montgomery County. But the real story is with the general administration or the central office in DC. DCPS again ranked first, but this time by a landslide. DCPS allocates almost 2.5 times more than the next per pupil than the next highest school system in the country, Boston. We allocated $1,452 per student for general administration, compared to only $599 for Boston, which ranks 2nd.
Thank you, Ms.
And I don't believe I reached my 3 minutes. I never saw my timer, so I'm going to finish. Montgomery County, the highest performing neighbor.
So if you could wrap
We
up.
did
Thank
12
you.
times more per pupil for general administration than Montgomery County. 12 times more. They only allocate $120 per pupil. You can read my full testimony. I emailed it. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And next, we'll hear from Danielle Drizzle.
Good evening, and thank you for your endurance. I appreciate your sitting through all of our testimony and can hear how passionate all of us are about the work you and we all do to support our students and families. My name is Danielle Drizzle. I'm a Ward 6 parent of students at Brent Elementary and Stewart Hobson Middle School. I'm also a member of the Ward 6 Public School Parent Organization, and I'm the Capital Cluster PTA Advocacy Chair, but I'm speaking here today on my personal capacity. I'm testifying this evening about the needs for the fiscal year 2024 budget to meet 3 key goals. 1, initial DCPS budgets that are stable and ensure full staffing, targeted support for before and after school needs for working families at all DCPS schools, and strategic budget allocations to address learning loss and capital investments to avoid losing federal resources that DC is being provided in connection with the pandemic. On the first point, our schools need full and consistent budgets. The annual stress of needing to advocate to fully funding existing payroll is unnecessary and inefficient. In this era of teacher and staff attrition, the message that full staffing is not a budget baseline is extraordinarily demoralizing. And the central office budgets for each school should fully fund payroll at existing staff levels for each school unless there is demonstrated enrollment attrition on a significant level. Unfunded mandates are unacceptable. If schools will be required to implement new staffing mandates and program content in an upcoming year, each school's budget should include the funds for the additional staff to meet those needs. New requirements without new funds force schools to cut existing programming. Budgets also need to reflect the true cost of staffing. At many schools, unfilled positions are directly attributable to insufficient budget. Mental health needs are unmet particularly in the elementary schools, because of the underfunding of those positions. Librarians need to be a permanent fixture in all DCPS schools. These funding gaps are consistently attributed to DCPS not offering salaries that are competitive with skilled professionals in other district employers and neighboring schools. As you've also heard, we have paraprofessional openings because the pay grade isn't commensurate with the demands of the position. Passion for serving students only goes so far when you can make more money stocking shelves at a grocery store. Second priority is subsidized before and after school care based on the financial need of the family, regardless of which DCPS school the child is attending. DCPS has strong policies to ensure families at Title I schools have before and their after school care needs met. But this support for working low-income families only at Title I schools, it's essential, but it's insufficient. No DCPS student should be turned away from their school's childcare provider due to an inability to pay. And finally, we need to be strategic to address the capital needs and learning loss needs of our schools to avoid leaving federal funds unspent. In fiscal year 2024, our schools will face non-recurring significant needs to address pandemic learning loss and capital investment. We want to give teachers classroom budget to buy learning materials, address the facilities needs that we've identified through the pandemic for both HVAC and door lock issues. And also in Ward 1, we've identified significant non-recurring capital needs for like at Eastern High School and the auditorium at Stewart Hobson. And we can leverage these one-time funds that the federal government is providing us to meet those time-sensitive needs.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you. And next we will have Melody Molinoff. Ms. Molinoff.
Good evening. My name is Melody Molinoff, and I am the parent of 2 Jackson Reed High School students and currently serve as the Jackson Reed LSAT chair. So congratulations, you made it to the end. And I am going to just send you my testimony, and I'm just going to close with one very brief remark. I really hope that tonight your takeaway is that we really do recognize that you embarked on improving a flawed budget model. And that you attempted to provide more transparency and equity and flexibility. But I hope that you heard all of us tonight. And what we were saying was, that's not what we're experiencing with this new budget model. And there were some really important themes that came out tonight, which I know that you're absorbing. But I think most importantly, we really need to increase base funding. And that would be the ultimate way to provide stability and to provide transparency for all of your stakeholders. So thank you so much for your time and for giving us this space for listening. And we look forward to working with you and continuing these conversations because we're really invested, as we know you are, in making sure that every student in every school has what they need to succeed. And so thank you.
Thank you as well. Have a good evening. And I believe we are ready to wrap up. Thank you so much, everyone, for sharing your input with us. We recognize the commitment of time and the passion we heard, which we share to make sure that this model and that our work supports the best schools within the Capitol. So with that, we're going to close. For those of you who are still on with us, just to share a few next steps. And these are next steps that we take every year as part of this process. We could, thank you, move to that slide. Great. So you'll see here just an overview of the budget development process. And again, we're starting now, meeting with you and also with our students to receive input on priorities as we begin the process of budget development. We also will finalize our enrollment projections, working with the Office of the State Superintendent of Education. And as I noted earlier, we will begin our office hours and supports to the LSATs at every school. Beginning in January, we continue our LSAT supports. We provide more targeted information and resources. We have a community budget session series, and then we also release our school budget allocations and begin working with our school leaders and teams, and of course their LSATs. And that work will take place between January and March. And then in late March, early April, we will finalize our budget submission, and the mayor will present the budget to DC Council. And of course, you will be updated along the way. Again, thank you very much for your input tonight. We really appreciate your time, and the issues you raise will be considered very carefully. May you all have a lovely evening.
Thank you very much.
Good night.